All right, folks, welcome to What Are the Odds with Barnes and Baris. I caught Robert off guard there. Whoops. Hey, bro, how's it going today? How's it going this week? Welcome, everybody. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and subscribe. All right, share far and wide. If you're on YouTube, mosey on over to Rumble, do the same thing. You know, the double A's here, folks. The algorithms and the advertisers. Algorithms and the advertisers. For those of you who like alliteration. Hi, Robert. Here we go. It's mid-September. We're back here again. Another year. All right. Here we go with the polls. Here we go with Ann Seltzer's little tricks. I didn't want to be right about Ann Seltzer, but unfortunately I am, and I have no trust in anybody anymore. If you can't trust Ann Seltzer, then there's really nobody you can trust. For those who don't know, Ann Seltzer was a pretty big deal when I was coming up, and that's somebody like a young Pollster would look up to, and especially from 08 on. I mean, she pulled a rabbit out of her hat, and it was a real big deal. The caucuses, the Democratic caucuses in 08. But that poll's been running forever. It's a staple in Iowa. And I had heard, from this, listen, I'm not going to get into where it was reliable and it was multi-sourced, that there was a poll that she was sitting on and that she did not release it. And it was very favorable to Trump. And I'm thinking to myself, God, please don't be true, because there's only one reason you'd be doing this. It's that you do not want to show Trump momentum before Harris has a chance to build fake momentum that could turn into real momentum from the media. And this is now the second time that Ann Seltzer has spiked a poll for what is not a credible reason in this industry. Of course, we all remember the 2020 Democratic caucuses, where the Buttigieg campaign and the Biden campaign got her to spike a poll. It's CNN, actually, but CNN is her client. The poll's hers. Should have been a press release out with that, Robert. If my client did that, I would have said, this is not a legitimate reason, in my opinion, to not release a poll. I protested. It didn't work, but I'm releasing this public statement because I care about my credibility. And that's it. That should have happened. One interviewer, Robert, may or may not have had her Zoom too much in and may or may not have cut Pete Buttigieg off of one poll, but that was an excuse. Biden was in fourth place. They didn't want to show Biden in fourth place, and that is the real reason the poll was spiked. We got the poll before, and we knew what it was, just so everybody knows. It wasn't that I just knew it. I had the poll in my hand, all right, printed off of a computer, and I knew the numbers. It showed Bernie ahead, Buttigieg doing actually very surprisingly strong, which is like ridiculous. Why would you want that poll spiked? It was one of the only ones that showed that you were doing that well. And Joe Biden was in fourth place. Joe Biden, in fact, came in fourth place. It was a very bad night for him. Look, and now, of course, the Tony Boner and Target Fart, all of these same grifters come back year after year, and we got to play whack-a-fraud every time they pop up with like the little beanie the kids play with. It's tiring, man. It's old, and stop citing Nate Silver. How many times are you guys gonna be duped by this guy? He is not a legitimate modeler. He has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to polling. He has no clue. I could sit him down at this desk right now, give him the reins and tell him, go ahead, Nate, you do it better. He wouldn't know what the hell to do because he's not a pollster. Yet he is constantly cited as a polling expert. He has never conducted a poll a day in his life. All right, and yet you fall for it. He puts Trump up 60%. He'll flip that shit in a day. His own model has Atlas Intel, the most accurate poll in the country. Hands down. And he doesn't even listen to it, which we'll show you the results of in a second. I'll let you go, Robert. I mean, I'm just over this shit, brother. I really am. It's annoying.
It'll be a fun show as usual. We're covering another assassination attempt.
Another attempt to kill this guy.
Which is extraordinary. The debate impact review. A lot of our predictions from last week came precisely to fruition. And to remind people, what to look for, what not to look for. It is the only people who really take the bait on these debate impacts are, unfortunately, large members of the right. I mean, they've been running this script now for decades. And yet some on the right still buy into the fake news and the fake polls. We're going to be debunking some of those fakes, phonies, and frauds in the data and polling world. People like Target Smart's Tom Beauvier, people like corporate whore Frank Luntz, people like the person who is running 538, D. Elliott Morris, who graduated from college in just 2018, who I was going back through to find all of my prior debates with. And what do I find? Morris went back and purged and deleted. He pulled a complete Hillary. He went through and deleted all of his old tweets with that I was exposing him as a fraud going all the way back to 2016. So we'll be discussing who this guy really is. And last but not least, well, two other components we'll be covering today. One is in terms of the polling data.
Voila.
I know. Yeah, with all the different times I wanted to bet him. Yeah, his post is gone. It's disappeared. It disappeared faster than a would-be Trump assassin social media. So yeah, but we'll be debunking some of these people because I see them making the usual rounds, and some people on the right not remembering who these frauds, fakes, and phonies are. We'll be debunking Garrett Archer, the Arizona election official turned commentator and journalist, who is a election fornication denier, and will be exposing why he is misleading people about the nature of what is taking place in this election. But last but not least, I will have my updated post-debate predictions for the entire Electoral College in 2024.
Let's start. I think this is a good place to start. Let's start with the Iowa presidential polls from 2020, shall we? All right. I think this is a good place to start since I went on an Ann rant, really, off the bat. Where is RCP? Oh, that's right. You actually have to type in RCP now because they get rid of them in the search engine now. So, and this is hilarious. What an absolute rewrite of history. Oh my God, give me a break. Quinnipiac did not have Trump winning in Iowa. This is what they do, folks. This is the Orwellian shit they do every year. Here is the polling on RCP, which is now Real Clear Polling. It has changed. You can see it in the last few days. Ann Seltzer puts out, literally 2 days before the election, or 3, she puts out Trump +7. Let's look and see what Ann Seltzer did the month before when Robert and I were literally polling the state live on a show. Literally had up market site, and you guys were watching the results before I even weighted them. And then I showed you what it looked like when I weighted it and how much I would have to manipulate the data to get Biden within like 4 to 6 points. He was getting absolutely trounced. Here we have one. This is a doozy. The New York Times Siena poll, Biden +3.
Oh, the New York Elliott Morris says that's the number one pollster in America.
The number one pollster
538 says the New York and says they're totally unbiased.
Oh my God.
Unlike Rasmussen, which he says is so bad he had to ban it from 538 site. The New York Times is the gold standard, along with Ann Seltzer in Iowa. So just a little reminder for those people that have complete polling amnesia, which appears to be large numbers of people on the right and other political prognosticators and predictors, that they have been notoriously wrong, usually wrong by double digits throughout the Midwest.
And never in favor of Trump and Republicans. This is a very important note because it's all right to be wrong. Everyone's going to be wrong. When you're wrong in the same direction every time, folks, it's more than just a polling error. Okay.
It's no longer margin of error. It's margin of bias.
Margin of bias. And by the way, when Nate still was at 538, he said we had a 7-point Republican bias. I went back. I never overstated Republican support by more than a few points, never, let alone 7 points or something.
And even your stuff, surveys would your error rate would be on both sides. It would be 1 to 2 points, and it often understated Trump in like Minnesota, Wisconsin, by 1 to 2
Iowa,
points.
Ohio. In 2016, our final was Trump +3 in Ohio. Trump +3. I blew it. Iowa was, I think, Trump +5. And then in 2020, we nailed them both. Absolutely on the pin. Nailed Ohio on the pin with J.D. Vance in the 2022 Senate race. I went in the field just to see if once again we were going to get this crap from Baris, who had, by the way, the Democrat ahead by 2 and then tightened it to a tie at the last minute, along with USA Today. And here we have the New York Times, just for Rich. Isn't that unfair? That was their September poll. It was, ladies and gentlemen. Here's their October pre-election poll. Final Biden +3. Folks, that is an 11-point Democratic bias. 11.
In their defense, I want to thank them for that. It helped radically reduce the odds in Iowa, and I was able to make a ridiculous profit in 2020 off the Iowa victory margin. Because your polls had Iowa by around 7 to 8. That's exactly where it landed.
Yep.
But the betting markets, who believed in 538, who believed in Nate Silver, who believed in Elliot Morris, who was then at The Economist. Again, this kid just graduated from college. I used to debate him when he was a sophomore at University of Texas online. It's ridiculous that this guy is now the leading and polling veteran in the country. People like Garrett Archer and others saying, "Oh yeah, look what Elliot Morris has to say." Give me a break. None of these punks would debate us anywhere, any place, anytime. Just like I've been offering them bets for 8 years now. Been saying, "Okay, want to wager? We can make it an honor bet. We can make it a public. I mean, it could be money. It can be not money. I don't care. Let's just put some value behind your reputation so you can be held accountable, like we are. You publicly publish your polls, publish the information behind the polls. I will make predictions years in advance. So everybody can go back and say, you got it right here, you got it wrong here. These wusses go back and just delete and purge their social media commentary.
Let's show that again, just so they understand we're not full of it here. Let's show that again. Here's from 2020. All right. And if I remember correctly, this was a claim. What state was this? What state was this? I can't remember, because you kept doing this to him all the time. But I'm looking at the date, and it was the summer. I want to say like it was Iowa or something.
He was predicting all kinds of insane things. And the ones I would focus on is the margin of victory and certain states like Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida, and Texas. Those are the 5 states I was the most confident in that they kept saying Biden was going to win. That I was like, that's not going to happen. Because I recognize it's close in Michigan. Well, I believed it was close. They didn't believe it was close in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Arizona and Nevada and Georgia. But your data had shown it wasn't going to be close in Florida. It wasn't going to be close in not a typical Florida closeness. And it wasn't going to be close in Ohio, and it wasn't going to be close in Iowa. And you were predicting that. I mean, your Rust Belt poll that had Biden leading in it just said he was DOA in Ohio and Iowa that you did for the Epoch Times in September of 2020. People can go back and find it. And you kept showing that in follow-up surveys. So I kept challenging these guys who were predicting that Elliot Morris was predicting that Trump was going to lose Iowa and Ohio. And Nate Silver was predicting, had maps. I used to make, what I was betting was their maps. Their maps kept showing Texas flipping, Florida flipping, North Carolina flipping, Ohio flipping, Iowa flipping. And I was like, I'll bet you on that map. I'll be happy to take that over-under on the Electoral College. I'll be happy to take that over-under on the margin of victory you're predicting in any state you want, including those states. But the odds understated the margin of victory in all of those states because of Elliot Morris flat out lying to people. I mean, he was predicting ridiculous things. In 2018, he said the youth vote was going to double or triple. I mean, this is why he's gone back and delete. And this was, I didn't even know he'd done it until today. I was like, I wanted to take everybody through a memory road of debating Elliot Morris for the last 8 years. And then I discover every time I look up one of my tweets with him, his is deleted. That's what a fraud Elliot Morris is.
And that was at The Economist.
To that punk or anybody at 538.
This was at The Economist, so everybody knows. He was if I remember correctly, right? He was the election before they grabbed him.
They hired him
538
out of college.
It was the worst model.
Out of college, out of UT Austin.
Dude, it was worse. The Economist now is favorable to Trump, actually. But when Elliot Morris ran the Economist model, it was worse than 538. I mean, the odds of like a Biden victory in states like Ohio were like 90%. It was outrageous. And by the way, let's go back to it. Let's not stop there. Let's just wait here. Okay, we got the good old Quinnipiac, who I accused of reprocessing their data sets. They did not poll again. They reprocessed the data set. It's the same data set, and they pretended they polled again. I mean, I don't know how anyone lets people get away with this shit, but it was so obvious. It was released a day after their other poll in Ohio and Iowa, and it was just a little bit more. It was like they added a few more interviews to the data set, reprocessed it, and tried to basically mirror what Nate calls herding. We used to call mirror in the actual industry. You're trying to mirror the results of other pollsters. All right, so the New York Times goes back in. They find, again, their final poll, Trump +3. Here's the great Ann Seltzer. In the poll that she just released was just Trump +4. Suggests that her final poll in Iowa will be Trump +11 or something like that. Trump +10 or 11, because she has done this twice. Not once, but twice in the state of Iowa. She did it in 16 and she did it in 20, pretending like the electorate suddenly shifts 7 points to Trump at the end. And here we actually have, at this time in 2020, Ann Seltzer's poll in Iowa was tied. So Trump is actually doing 4 points better in her poll for September that he was doing against Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. They were tied. My poll, for anyone who's not too lazy to go look, you can go to bigdatapoll.com. Into the public polling project for 2020. It's on the front page. Scroll down. You can click on it and go see the results. It is Trump +7. I just looked. 52-45 in September, not in October at the end. In September.
That's exactly right. And so I mean, these what for people out there, don't trust anybody who cites a Seltzer poll who doesn't give you like-to-like comparisons. That's the point. Now some people, On Point Politics has a YouTube channel. Some other people out there are doing a better job looking at like-to-like polls. Don't look at their final estimate. Look at how they look at median. Don't look at the aggregate. Look at that pollster during a comparable time period, right? Don't look at Seltzer's last poll. Look at what Seltzer was polling in September if you're comparing it to a fall poll. By the
way, Nate Silver said he actually, when grading pollsters, he takes into account their second to last poll. In fact, that's what he said. Why? Because pollsters heard at the end, and that's not a true reflection of what they were trying to show in their polling. So by that measure, Ann Seltzer is not a good pollster. And listen, let me just call it how I see it. In the 2020 Democratic caucuses, they were not. Iowa State University was more accurate than her. That's number one. In the last Republican caucus, they were not more accurate than her. They had a little bit too bullish on Trump, but nonetheless, they were more accurate when it came to like the state of the race. If DeSantis did get more conservatives out, he would slip in a second. Like we said, like polling wise, she was ahead, but you could see it in the data that was like very soft, and she needed a lot of Democrats to go and change their affiliation on site, which they did, by the way. And it just wasn't enough because conservatives ended up being like 80% of the caucus going electorate, which it was only like 2/3 in 2016. So it was much higher. But in any event, that's how DeSantis was able to catch her and surpass her. Our poll was more accurate than Ann Seltzer in this prior Republican caucus. So, I mean, she underpolled Trump, had him below 50% after, by the way, in her second to last poll, he was above 50%. All right. He was just above it. So, our final poll nailed Trump by like, I think 0.8% or something like that, 0.8. Or so I'd have to go back and look. And by the way, Ohio. All right. That would be another fantastic one to look at, honestly. But in our poll, which I just went back and looked at myself, it is Trump +9. You can click on the crosstabs, and it is absolutely, I mean, we took it off the table. You could see we didn't even care about what the rest of the undecideds were going to do, which at that time was supposedly about 7%. It was Trump 49, Biden 40. And Robert and I said, Waste of money. A waste of money. Live on the show. By the way, Fox News and all the rest of them. Let's go show everybody this. Look at how much blue is in Ohio, Robert. Here we go. The New York Times poll, Biden +1, a 9-point miss. That is actually their second to last poll. You have Trafalgar all alone here with a Trump +4. They eventually do their last one. It is Trump +5. Rasmussen, who Elliot Morris trashes all the time, along with Philip Bump at the Washington Post, was closer. Quinnipiac, Biden +4. Emerson, Biden +1. Fox News herded because on the show, live polling, this poll dropped. I remember it like it was yesterday. There it is, Robert. Right around this time, September 20th to the 23rd. I remember it like it was yesterday. We have Trump up 9 and a freaking Biden +5 drops while Robert and I are on the show. And I flipped my shit. You remember that? I lost it. I was like, let's play around. I probably spent like 20 minutes of the show. We did not anticipate me doing this. Like, I probably spent like 20 minutes on the show playing with weights to show people how full of crap Fox News really is, or at least their joint polling outfit, which is Karl Rove's friends, by the way. Those are Karl Rove's friends and John Kerry's old pollster, folks. Come on, give me a break here. I'm going to give myself an aneurysm if I keep this up, Robert. I'm telling you.
Well,
CBS, YouGov, tie.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to compare like-to-like comparisons for everybody out there to remember that. Now, there's some areas where you can't make like-to-like comparisons.
Yeah.
So this highlights two pollsters. So Elliot Morris is out there circulating. I think he's removed Atlas, by the way, now from being a top pollster.
You have got to be kidding me. Did he really?
At least the last I saw.
I said
that Atlas is still on the list. It's just not in his even top 15. Like Survey USA, I think was up there. I mean, I was like,
I saw YouGov, which is
of course YouGov is
outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
I'll need you to partially explain this to people. So people were wondering over the weekend, like Frank Luntz, and we'll get to Frankie here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But as to who he really is, another fake, phony fraud on the list.
Corporate
with Nate Silver, Nate Cohn, Elliot Morris, and these other folks. But Tom Bonier and Target Smart, we'll get to them as well.
Tony Boner.
He was confused about why it was that there was a gap between Atlas, which along with you was the most accurate in 2020.
0.2. They beat us by 0.
Yeah, 0.2 is almost. I mean, but the even 538's own post election admitted that Rasmussen and Atlas were the ones that had the lowest error rates. Compared to all their so-called number one pollsters, all their A+ pollsters, the ones Garrett Archer is citing articles that say to share, right? It shows what fakes and phonies all these guys are. But so Atlas has a poll out showing Trump up nationwide, which would be a complete wipeout on the Electoral College. It would, in fact, what Atlas currently has projected is almost identical to the prediction I gave you almost 6 weeks ago here on this show in terms of the national vote totals.
Oh, it is now. Okay.
Now, TIPP, who has previously conducted surveys for Investors Business Daily, has a good presidential polling history. But it now is polling as if it's indistinguishable from YouGov, from Reuters, from Ipsos, from ABC. But here's a scenario or a situation where not just as ABC is no longer the same pollster as it was in every presidential election prior, nor is TIPP using the same modes anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
What people don't understand is the reason why TIPP was so good.
Yeah.
Is they were a very good live phone pollster.
Yes.
So for those that don't
very
know,
rare.
There's a good number of people who are going to be new in the audience that watch this over, the 100,000 plus that watch this over the next couple of days. The basic methods of trying to poll someone is how you reach them to respond to the poll, and one is in person, one is by mail, another one is by the phone, by calling on the phone. But do you call live, or do you have what's called AVR polling, an automated voice that's recording that you're responding to? Do you call it the landline, or are you calling a cell phone? Or you can do by texting, or you can do by participating in online panels, or by responding to an email or text that you may participate in online in that mechanism. So these are all the different modes by which you can reach potential voters. The mode you use and how well you use it is critical to being a skilled pollster. What people don't understand is, outside of Baris and a few others, there has been a massive shift in the media, mostly to save money, but also because it's easier to manipulate. They are going, almost all of the ABC has fired its pollster. CNN fired its pollster. Fox fired one of its pollsters. A lot of, and they're going to a cheaper model because live phone calling is extremely expensive, because 98% of the people don't answer the call. So you spend 50 times more than you did 20 years ago to get the same number of sampled results.
Like $25 a complete, $20 to $25 a complete. If it's 20, it's cheap. So you might wonder what's going on there if you're paying that. Meanwhile, you can pay a couple bucks for a complete on an online panel, folks. I buy so much data usage for texting. So for our peer-to-peer texting, which is when there's a live agent talking with you and they're saying, hey, answer back and forth, or there is a link that's texted to you. All right, we like to do that too a lot, because they get, they can save and continue. And working class people can take up to 24 hours to conduct the poll. So we're like, take your time. If you got this, once you start it, you have 24 hours to complete it. You can hit save. You can come back and at another time until you're done. But it's got to be within 24 hours. You're talking about maybe $5 a complete for online, something like that. A little bit more to some, and depending on how much they buy. We buy so much when it comes to texting that we can do it. But plus we have agents like our own. That's the difference. The call center scam, Robert, of the live caller industry just destroyed the credibility of it and the competency of it. I got polled. My wife got polled by Richard Hart in 2016. It was awful, Robert. I mean, they were making size. By the way, they call it supposed to be a randomized survey. They reach me. They ask to speak to Laura. Why? Because I'm a middle-aged white man, and I'm very likely to say I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Why would you ask for my wife in the household? Because she's younger than me. She's Hispanic. No, she's not that much younger, but she is younger. She's Hispanic, and she's a female. I mean, so when she told the interviewer she was going to vote for Trump, the interviewer went in the microphone, in the microphone. So we have trained agents, so we can do it for a little bit less, because we pay them. We don't contract out. So, that's a big deal, but it's still less. It's still less than $25 a complete. That's just
you have to be very, very good at it. So ABC like and TIPP like them are going to just exclusively online panels. So they're using a mode that is not established to have any successful track record
for them
at all. So you cannot rely on TIPP at all anymore. You can just toss them into the same as everyone else.
Never done it before.
And one of the key points you made is that the quality of you can incorporate an online panel that's useful as a component of reaching out to voters to get an adequate response, incorporating. But the best mode is if you do multiple modes and you have discipline about, as well as Richard was describing, about how that entire process works. And then you have to have proprietary mechanisms like Richard has in order to be able to filter out what's representative and what isn't. That's the art and science of polling combined. How does talking to 2,000 people project the opinions of 150 million? In that capacity, the key point you've been highlighting, and now TIPP, I think, is participating in it, is that the quality of their online polling is complete crap. They're like, these people reported 3 or 4 different polls this week that magically all matched. By the way, it was exactly what we predicted last week. We said after, we'll get that in a little bit in the big impact review, where we said, watch, they'll declare Harris the winner, and then they'll have her up by 4 to 5 points. And what happens within a week? They declare Harris the winner. They have her up by 4 to 5 points. And I get some of these conservatives like, oh no, we're in trouble. It's like, we told you this garbage was coming.
It's like their first election or something, man. Like they haven't been around or alive for like 10 years.
Amnesia. They've got amnesia, and they get tricked by people like Nate Silver, which we'll get to in a bit. But one of the things you've been pointing out, it looked to me like a lot of these may just be the exact same panel, that they're talking to the exact same people, and they're just moving around the data and calling it a different poll.
That's the industry's dirty little secret. Okay, this is what I've been. And by the way, I am not being liked from telling people this. This is the industry's dirty little secret. I'm not going to do it because I have a very good relationship with one of mine, but I could go in and folks, I could show you their marketplaces. All right. And yes, you could exclude certain panels that you don't want. We only work with one because there are metrics that you could use to basically gauge the quality of these panels. You can data append them to the voter file to make sure it's just not junk. During COVID, the panel problem became real bad because there was just a bunch of these TDS, overeducated, sitting on their ass on a Zoom call all day, like calling it work, like these overeducated people just clicking these, I'm going to join these panels. And the panels bloated with overeducated, over-credentialed Trump haters. And they don't want to pay for like making not only quotas, but, using stratified not post, you need to use a stratification, and they don't want to do that because then you have to increase the number of completes that you're targeting. And that is going to cost you a lot more money. So, and you have to bid for them in the marketplace. So they don't want to bid more than 50 cents. Okay. Like that's what it comes down to. They don't want to bid more than maybe $1.50. And even that, they're all trying to beat each other out, Robert. And the fact of the matter is, it's the same panel. YouGov is now dipping. They used to have their own, but now they got too big for their britches. So they're in our marketplace right now. And then they give their data set to Yahoo News, to The Economist, to all these other people. And then they pretend that it's a different poll. It's not. It's the same data set. And by the way, the only difference is how they're weighting it. The poll in The Economist was tied because they weighted it, reasonably. So it was a tied race. The poll for Yahoo News was not because they weighted Republicans down to 27%. You could see the weighted versus unweighted. That's all they're doing. They're fucking around with and Robert, when was the last time? Because Laura was talking about this. I don't know whether it's whatever panel we're using. I cannot tell you the last time any raw data nationally came back with more independents than Republicans self-identified. I don't think that's, in my years as a pollster, I don't think that's ever happened to me. Where it's like Democrat 37, Republicans 28, and independents in the 30s. And, that doesn't happen, guys. I mean, it's always that Democrats may have a little bit of an edge, or Republicans may have a little bit of an edge, but independents are always like 29, 20 something percent, maybe 31. We always have the someone else break. So it's a little different for us, but never do they even combined come to a percentage above Republicans. Like if your poll is 23 to 27% Republican, you did that on purpose. You did that on purpose.
The other thing is, if you're playing with the exact same data, you can get any result you want.
Of course.
I mean, it's harder you have to deliberately manipulate like a poll that's new, that goes out and talks to new people, that isn't somebody else that somebody else talked to, or if it's the exact same group of people, then that's same. But when you got 10 pollsters using the exact same data set, then they can just play around until they get the outcome they want. Yeah. I mean, the YouGov is a complete joke at this point. They are manipulating numbers that make no sense at all. You look at their internals and they're all over the place. So Trump is getting more Republicans than Harris is getting Democrats.
It's crazy.
And Trump is up amongst independents, but he's down by 5.
And he's winning more independents who lean Democrat than she's winning independents who lean Republican, yet he's down by 5. And that's that poll that I was talking about and tweeting about, folks. That one Robert just cited. Go and look, and you will see that they weighted Republicans down below 30%. It's insane. And independents and Democrats are like, more than 2/3 of the electorate combined. They're like 70+% of the electorate. And Republicans are like 27. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Such a wacky number. Because I mean, their own surveys show major erosion of Democratic support amongst Black voters, Hispanic voters, young voters.
The what is it? The NAACP poll that just came out. They spoke to 1,000 Black voters. Trump is getting 25% of men below the age of 45, as we have been showing now for a very long time. They didn't budge because Kamala Harris replaced Joe Biden. And he's winning like 10% of Black women. So let me put this clear to you folks. Sometimes Black women could be like 8% and men could be like 4%, but there have been elections when they were both generally the same, like 7 and 6, right? If that happens and he wins that many Black men, he's going to get like 15% of the Black vote, 16%, maybe more. Oh. And who are the undecideds? Those Black women told them that they were undecided. I'm telling you, they're full of shit. They're not undecided. They did this to us in 2020. He actually increased with Black women by a greater percentage than he increased with Black men. So if those undecideds are really going for Trump and they're just not saying it, dude, he's going to get 20% of the Black vote. There's no way he loses with 20% of the Black vote. Sorry.
And that's what's now. What was it?
Break.
So, that takes us to one of the bigger scam artists in this space, and that's Target Smart and Tom Bouvier. Now, I was trying to go back and find my various comments and debates with Bouvier over the years, and then I realized he's blocked me, so I couldn't.
Me too. Me too.
So he doesn't want us calling him out. So for those, Target Smart is presented in the press as this independent data analysis organization. And there's people that take Tom Bouvier seriously, that he's the expert on voter registration trends. He's the expert on early voting trends. He's the expert on mail-in balloting. I caught him in 2020, basically faking data and faking the interpretation of that data. That's why I'm blocked and Baris is blocked.
That's probably why you got blocked.
He's out there right now pretending that the voter registration data is all trending massively Democratic.
He does it every year. It never doesn't trend massively Democratic. Do you remember North Carolina in 2014 and 2020? That's when I got blocked. I got blocked. Oh, no. I finally got blocked during the 2021 Virginia gubernatorial election. That's when he blocked me. Because, of course, that was massively trending Democratic as well. And yeah, I mean, we were going over this in 2016. It was this huge lead for Hillary Clinton in like areas like North Carolina. In 2020, did the same thing. And Robert and I both tried to remind him, Boner, don't you remember this argument again? You're doing this again. All right. Republicans are going to outvote Democrats, of course. And this is actually down from Obama. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Right. Right now, North Carolina, he's going on and on again about. And it's unbelievable, Robert.
He's claiming Democrats are surging in North Carolina. He's saying all the young unaffiliated voters are massively Democratic, like he falsely claimed in 2020, like he falsely claimed in 2016. So there's people that will send me his stuff and that share his stuff. The media will quote him all the time. He claimed there's going to be 500,000 new voters because of Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris. He claimed there were 500,000 new voter registrations, which is completely false.
It's false.
He's talking about people looking stuff up on the internet, and he translates that into they've registered to vote.
Even Henry Anton said that that's not the case. Only 300 and something thousand went to the website. It doesn't mean they all signed up to vote.
Completely not.
Kidding.
The number that actually are going to register is probably about 30,000. Spread that out across the country. Maybe she got net 30 votes. And she's going to lose a lot of cash because people are like, why is Trump attacking her? It's very simple. Trump wants to make sure every celebrity knows you come after him. You have a portion of your audience that's strong Trump supporters. He will make you suffer financially for doing it. He will make you suffer in the court of public opinion for doing it. That's why he's going at Taylor Swift. Nobody else has the guts to go after Taylor Swift. This scam artist in a fake relationship, or everything that looks like a fake relationship.
That's
with
when
an
she
NFL
lost my daughter. That's when she lost my daughter. My daughter didn't buy it. She thought it was a fake relationship. And then she said to me, Dad, why would I even take advice from a girl or woman whose every song after a while, because the early stuff she liked, I mean, my daughter's young, so she likes some of her older stuff. And she's like, why would I take advice from a girl who sings every song now about picking the wrong man? And now she's in this, what is very clear to me, a fake relationship. Is he going to be a song soon? Like, this is a scam. I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like,
And the NFL is starting to
used.
get caught fixing high-profile games for the
Of
Kansas
course.
City Chiefs because, a lot of people think they did in the Super Bowl last year.
Of course. I do. I think they did. I
Yeah,
absolutely.
by the officiating. I mean,
Yeah.
I even did a hush hush before the Super Bowl on this risk. Because of how it looks like it's being manipulated. So I mean, the reason why Trump's doing it is he's discouraging everybody else from doing it. But if you dig in, these celebrities don't translate to net votes. It's not going to translate.
Never
into
do. Never
Robert
do.
Kennedy translates into net votes because he was running for president and had a bunch of people ready to vote for him and had a bunch of people motivated by policy. A bunch of Swifties aren't going to be suddenly voting for Harris who are otherwise not voting for Harris because Taylor Swift says something. But he's out there lying to everybody saying this is Target Smart, independent objective data analyst, Tom Bonnier, that is putting this out. And this is good for people to remember because everybody seems to forget who all these
Remember
people
this?
are. Here is what Tom Bonnier was predicting back in 2016, what his independent data analysis was showing in Florida, that Hillary Clinton was going to win by a landslide in Florida in 2016. And this was on the eve of the election. He was saying
she had 28% of votes from Republicans. And it played a segment on MSNBC. You and I were like, wait, what? Can I read it real quick? Because it's very important to remind everybody this. Democrat Hillary Clinton enjoys an 8-point lead over Donald Trump in Florida, a key presidential battleground, according to a new survey. And that's due in no small part to a significant crossover support from 28% of early voting Republicans. Folks, Trump won more Democrats than Hillary Clinton won Republicans in Florida in that election. And by the way, if I remember correctly, Robert, it really wasn't that close. It was like he lost like 6% of Republicans and she lost like 11 or something.
Just read that paragraph of what Bonnier says next.
Here we go. Target Farts CEO Tony Boner, said on the show that its tracking survey of early voters in Florida, combined with its projections for likely voters, found that Clinton led Republican nominee Trump in the state 48-40. He said 28% of early voting Republicans cast ballots for her, while just 6% of Democrats voted early, sided with Trump.
Folks, it was literally the flip.
It literally is the opposite of that. Only Trump didn't get 28%, but he got like a nice chunk of the Democratic vote. Boner,
especially your ancestral Democratic vote that was still registered Democratic, because that's the numbers he's operating off of. Who's registered?
It is right. And this is what we tried to tell him when he was pushing this bullshit back in 2016. And he did it in North Carolina, too. He gave her a 6-point lead. And we were trying to explain to Boner that those Democrats are not Democrats in presidential levels. If you are getting those numbers, it's because you're too metro.
You're talking about Dixie. Yeah, you're talking about Dixie County Democrats in Florida back in 2016. You're talking about people who the movie with Burt Reynolds, Gator. That's the panhandle of Florida. And a whole bunch of them were registered Democrats, and he was saying they're all none of them are voting for Trump.
She's so strong in Big Bend. She's so strong in the Big Bend of the Panhandle.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of, this guy's been pushing utter garbage for years. For the entire time his Target Smart's been operating. Target Smart is a complete joke. Tom Boner is a complete joke. The Elliot Morris is a complete fraud. Nate, now, little tangent on Nate Silver before we get to exposing Frank Luntz. The thing people don't understand.
Wait. Can I just read this real quick? Can I just read this last quote? Okay. Tony Boner said the results were, quote, challenging the conventional wisdom of what we've seen so far. Clinton, he said, was performing incredibly strong with registered Republican voters, because this is important what Robert's saying. And in some states, when he does this crap, Robert, he doesn't even have registration data because you have to infer, which is what the argument that got me blocked about Virginia was about. You can't say that, boner, because there is no registration by party in Virginia. You are doing what's called an inference model. And I don't know what you're using for that, because you have and I don't want to trash the company because they're nice.
He's still doing it. Because that's his new thing. He's saying all the unaffiliated voters, new registrations, are 80-20 Democrat.
Meanwhile, it's not showing in the actual numbers, which Harry Enton did a segment on this. He was like, this is publicly available information. Here's how the Democrats have fared since the 2020 election, and here is how they fared in the last month. Like, this is, if this was true, we would see this, and it would be like enormously different from what has been happening for years. You don't put a Taylor Swift website up, folks, and change the entire trajectory of registered voting patterns in this country. There is an immense infrastructure in place. It is not altered by a single website from a person that most people in this country don't even listen to or care about. It is a small subsection of the population. Maybe that they thought they could get them out, but even like Robert said, even that subsection, they're not all Democrats. They're not all that. Like, you would need them to be universally Democratic to have the numbers that he is saying. All right, so I'll let you go with that, and then we'll pull up the other one here, Mr. Corporate Fraud.
And before we get to Frank Luntz and wrapping up our fakes, phonies, and frauds part of the show, I have an alternate theory on what Nate Silver is doing. So for those people that don't know or are new to this, which I know some portion of the audience is, because a lot of people tune in this time of year that are new. Nate Silver is a sort of a baseball nerd, a wannabe sports handicapper who got into political prognostications with an independent site, 538, based on the Electoral College is what inspired the name of the site. And in 2012, that he called it for Obama and called a bunch of close states for Obama because he misread the polls and thought registered voter polls were more accurate than likely voter screened polls. The real reason Obama won, I bet on him heavy that election cycle, was because black voters were not going to let the first ever elected black president to go down to defeat in re-election. And working class whites in the Midwest had no interest in Mitt Romney. And that was the real reason. It had nothing at all to do. If you look state by state, a lot of the polls actually overstated Obama's support. It depended on whether you had a racial turnout gap amongst working class black and white voters that dictated the actual whether the poll overstated or understated the election. Because Gallup was using a traditional voter screen, it got it wrong. It decided to no longer poll presidential elections. Pew did the same thing in terms of it backing down and reducing their footprint for presidential polling. And Nate Silver got this voodoo reputation. In 2016, he invested all of it in writing about 300 articles about why Donald Trump could never get nominated and why Donald Trump could never win.
You remember that?
He kept predicting this after every single Trump win. He predicted Trump was about to get crushed. He got pretty much everything wrong in the entire Republican caucus. He staked his whole reputation on it, and then got it all wrong again in the general election. Was salvaged because he was still on the Democratic side of the aisle, and that's all that matters in the data analysis world. Not honesty, not accuracy, not successful predictions. Throughout all of 2016, I kept offering to bet him on any terms. Could be financial terms, could be non-financial terms, could be just a tweet bet that whoever loses has to post some pinned tweet that of the other person's choosing. He refused all of them because he was too scared to do so. In 2018, he once again had certain outcomes right, but he was still wrong by how he got there. He got the Senate completely wrong. He got Florida Senate completely wrong. Got a bunch of key Senate races wrong. Got a bunch of key governor's races wrong. The House went his way, but not for the reasons he really forecast or predicted. But he got a lot of credit. So comes back in 2020, predicts is again hit or miss in his predictions throughout the election component. 2022, also the same, gets pushed out at 538. And now he's starting a new independent site, whatever it's called. Here is his motivation. My view is, one, his motivation is clickbait, try to get as much attention to him, try to get as many subscribers to his site as possible, because he got pushed out at 538. One of the main reasons 538 is during this time period, Disney owns ABC, owns ESPN. 538, his grand goal was to be a sports handicapper, and 538 was picking games over for ESPN. He was so atrocious and abominable at it that you could make money just betting against him, which has been true about the margin of victory in presidential elections as well in the last 2 cycles. And that led to ESPN jettisoning, dumping him. And then the site was losing money at ABC.
Big time, millions.
Exactly. So they finally dumped him and tried to scale back. So now he needs to get a second berth. And so he's going to do 3 things to get that second berth. First, he's going to do clickbait, and so he's going to have things that will get attention from both sides. So Trump surging, no, Harris surging, no, Trump surging, no, things that will get people to share the links. Amazing number of people on the right who are taking the bait on this.
Stop doing it. Stop doing it.
This is pure clickbait. I mean, this is like Trump agreeing and Republicans agreeing to let the ABC News of the world host presidential debates. It's that kind of trap. The second thing you can expect him to do is he needs to distinguish himself from everyone else in this space in terms of the big institutional media predictors. They all get their paycheck and know their job is to repeat the Democratic narrative no matter what it is. They understand that's why they've been hired. That's why a kid that's just a few years out of college is running the 538 site that you have a bunch of people saying is the best, most important site for election analysis. I mean, he's literally a kid. The guy's got no clue what he's doing. He's just completely biased on the Democratic side, but that's why he got hired. Because he'll be docile, he'll be dormant, he'll be deferential, and he's on the Democratic side. So if you're Nate Silver, how do you distinguish yourself? Well, you distinguish yourself by putting out more pro-Trump headlines.
Yeah.
So you're going to put out pro-Trump headlines in order to get clickbait, and you're going to probably be more Trump this election cycle than everybody else, because that gives you the best chance to say, see, I was more right than all of these people. But you can't trust that motivation, because underlying it, he wants to get back into the good graces of the institutional media and keep getting big checks written when he has no business getting paid checks at all. So that's why so you can expect him to be unusually, though probably sporadically and unreliably, pro-Trump in his analysis. He won't be able to handle his prejudice, though. His prejudice is so strong politically that he will praise anybody who does what he thinks is the right policy, and he'll condemn anybody that does what he doesn't agree with policy-wise, but he'll disguise that commentary as data analysis, as what people really think and view. And so that, because his ultimate goal is to manipulate policy through manipulating public narrative by pretending to represent public opinion when he doesn't. And that's because, going to Baris's point about all this, the reason George Gallup did polling his whole life is totally different than why Frank Luntz does it.
Yeah.
So with Gallup, the reason why some people wonder, why is Baris ranting on Nate Silver again? The point is that the point and purpose of public opinion polling is to make sure the court of public opinion is represented with decision makers.
Hello, folks. It's important.
Exactly. It's critical. It's the public's check. It's to make sure the consent of the governed is actually happening by the government.
Yes.
That means you need honest, accurate representation. Even if Richard disagrees with what the public is saying, he's going to report it. He may want a different outcome on abortion, but he's going to tell you, here's what the public opinion is, and here's where you can move the needle, here's where you can't. Here's what's reasonable, here's what isn't. When you doctor the data, when you manipulate the polling in order to shape a narrative, you're not only manipulating and lying to the American people, you're destroying the ability of the consent of the governed to control and govern the governed, to be the government. And that's why it matters who these people are. With up next, though, will cover another person that's part of this, but for different motivations, and exposing Frank Luntz.
Yeah, I will put this link out in the chat. Robert, you really put that effing beautifully. I mean, George Gallup believed that in the modern era, that polling was so important that the self-governing society probably could not function without it anymore. And so it's that critical. And when you have a fraud like this, like Nate Silver, not only doing gross damage to public trust in the industry, he scares pollsters like into doing bad things, the wrong things. He's not only damaging the industry, he is damaging our system of government. He is hindering its ability to properly function the way it is designed to function. I may not like what Robert just said is 100% true. I may not like some of the results that I get on abortion. I'm as pro-life as it comes. And the older I get, the more pro-life I'm getting. But that's not really the point. The point, pushing the narrative is not the point. It benefits nobody to lie to people and pump out push polls and push polls out there that are simply for narrative and not for giving people, especially lawmakers, the necessary information that they need to make a good decision, a wise decision. If they don't, and if, by the way, folks, if people don't feel like the consent of the governed is being respected and their will is not being carried out, that leads to stuff like bloodshed and democide, because that's human history and that's human nature. And this guy is like fucking around with it because he's this failed sportscaster who got in the good graces of Democrats and he likes to keep his lifestyle. That is not acceptable. And if you are anything but a rabid liberal, even you rabid liberals shouldn't be sharing his stuff. But if you're anything but a rabid liberal and you're sharing his material, shame on you, and you should not do it anymore. He is not a credible source of information. He never has been. And before I move on to the next corporate shill or party shill, let me just show you this. Because as you were saying it, Robert, I'm like, God, I remember this article I wrote years ago. And it was right after the Republican nomination. It's called Nate Silver is wrong about Trump again. He's wrong a lot. Here's why. And the very first paragraph I'll read, but I'll pump out the link in the comment section and you guys can read it later. Nate Silver, the election forecaster at 538, who gave Trump a 5% chance of winning the Republican nomination. Folks, 5% now gives him just a 25% chance of defeating Hillary Clinton. This is a stark contrast from his last look at the race in November when he gave a generic Republican a 50-50 against a likely Democratic nominee. When the real, and I said here's why, but we also go into a series of his failed predictions, but then we talk about here's why. I mean, the first data point for any model in 2016 had to include the incumbent party's ability to win a third term. And I think it's a little bit overstated, but it still nevertheless is a data point. And we got into talking about that a little bit more, but really you'll see what I focus on. He doesn't have a legitimate stake in this industry. He got his start by getting that model he was blogging about. Robert wasn't even a model back in 2008. It was David Pluff's polling information. That's how big of a bullshit artist this guy is. He simply was getting leaked. David was giving him his polling information, and everything he was writing about had to do with what David was giving him. And he was passing it off as like, I'm some really super smart statistician, and here's what my calculations tell me. And I'm a guru, and you better listen. And, Dr. Evil. Like, and he got lucky that David was right. And then he got a gig. And ever since, by the way, that gig has been losing millions and millions every year. Why would you keep a website at ABC News if it was losing $6 million a year? Folks, why? Why? For narrative. You're not making money. It's still private business. They make decisions based on profit and loss. Then here they're not. They're making decisions based on ideology. And once he lost his own credibility, he was useless. So they had to bring Elliot Morris in. And I'll leave it at that. I'll tweet this link out there. I strongly suggest that you read it. And I strongly, even more strongly suggest that you should not share his material. Robert, I think your alternative theory is right, dude. I think you're right. The more I've been listening to you, the better. I was thinking like, well, he's doing what he does, lures people in and then dupes them. But here, and it serves both purposes. What if your theory is correct. And I think you are correct about that. I mean, I never really looked at it like that. I think you nailed it, dude. I think you did. Okay.
And if Trump overperforms what everybody else expects, he'll take credit and say, "See, now I'm back to being the best polling analyst out there."
The country. Yeah.
Yep. That's the game he's playing. But utterly unreliable, utterly untrustworthy, dishonorable, dishonest person. And let's move on to our next dishonorable, dishonest person. Maybe we'll create like a Hall of Shame top 10 or
we should.
Fakes, phonies, and frauds in the polling and data industry.
Love that, dude.
Yeah, because up next is Frankie Luntz, who's the media's favorite pollster, all the way back to when he was polling for Ross Perot, and Ross Perot figured out he was an untrustworthy little which was a whole nother story. This guy comes from upper middle class Connecticut, went to Oxford. I mean, nothing about this guy is populist, but he's been a pretend populist since he weaseled his way into Pat Buchanan's camp, and then parlayed that into Ross Perot's camp. Read that. I think it's the second paragraph. Who does Frank Luntz really work for?
Yeah, let's do this. Okay, so this is unbelievable. One of the most honored communication professionals in America today. No, he's not. I will tell you what the real reputation is for Frank Luntz in a second. Dr. Luntz, okay? Get it right. Doctor has written, supervised, and conducted more than 2,000 surveys, focus groups, ad tests, and dial sessions in over 24 countries and 4 continents over the past decade. The dials, you may remember, folks, from Fox News. He was publicly accused by an employee of faking those dials. Frank has become the go-to consultant when Fortune 100 companies and their CEOs need communication and language guidance. Are you ready? From General Motors to Federal Express, Disney to American Express, AT&T to Microsoft, from Lowe's to Pfizer, from Kroger supermarkets to McDonald's, to the entire soft drink, hotel, and motion picture industries, as well as for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Manufacturers and the Business Roundtable. He also is very good friends with Kevin McCarthy, who got him most of these gigs over the years, but he's been at this for a very long time. Many people, however, now, Robert, know the jig is up, because employees have run around to most of those clients, except for Pfizer. They still hire him, as does Nike, by the way. So he is responsible for dumbass Republicans like the former governor of Arizona putting a Nike home base in Maricopa County in Phoenix, right? He's responsible for getting mini Tinseltown in places like Atlanta. So when you see them make incredibly stupid economic decisions that turn out to be politically disastrous for the Republican Party in the state, Frank Luntz, in most of these cases, had a hand in it. All right. So now his employees have sufficiently told a number of people that the work is fake. And that is the truth. That is the legitimate truth. They have run around telling people that he's not really doing these dials. These dials he makes on his computer and he sends them over to you. Like, it's bad shit. Really bad shit.
He's the Bernie Madoff of polling.
Oh my God. You're on a roll today, bro.
I mean, because people that don't remember, Bernie Madoff figured out the best way to keep getting the money in was just say, hey, your profit's up 7% this month, and just send it to them. Don't worry about what the actual data is. Just say, hey, it's up 7%, maybe 5.4, something that sounds realistic. And that's what he does. That's what, by the way, I believe all these pollsters are now doing with these shared online data set polls. I mean, that's why, you're able to look at their internals and be like, this doesn't even make sense. You can't even add this up correctly. That's what is going on systematically. That Luntz has been the expert at it. America's most preeminent pollster. Now, I'm sure Pfizer is keeping him on the payroll because dear Frankie keeps having strokes. And he got strokes after he took a little shot in the arm from Pfizer.
Yep.
But who does he blame his strokes on? Donald Trump. You can look at the Guardian piece that says Donald Trump has caused him so much physical anguish that it caused him to have strokes. It definitely wasn't Pfizer. It wasn't the company putting out a product known as to have a side effect of causing strokes. No, it definitely wasn't that, because they keep writing those checks to dear Frankie. And for those that don't remember, Frank on election night told everybody Hillary Clinton had been elected president of the United States.
Yes, let's do that, shall we? Here we go. In case I was not clear, and then I'm going to show people just so they know that you're not BSing about that, because it's so outrageous. You would think like, no way he blamed his stroke on Donald Trump. He did, and I'm going to show you he did. In case I wasn't clear enough from my previous tweets, Hillary Clinton will be the next president of the United States. Hashtag election night. Hashtag from where? Manhattan, by the way. What watch party was that? What watch party was he at? Was he going to? Right. It wasn't Donald Trump's, was it? No, it wasn't. It was Hillary Clinton's. And here is where he... Oh, God, I didn't have it up. Oh, my God. How could I have forgotten?
Did we lose Baris momentarily? I think he'll be back in a second.
I bumped myself. I bumped myself in the damn stream. That was me. Sorry. But it says, I had a stroke because of him. One time. GOP pollster says Trump-induced stress was nearly fatal to him. And Robert is not joking. He literally said that Trump gave him a stroke, and that this is like his condition, is Trump derangement syndrome almost killed him. All right, there it is. And this is Raw Story, but The Guardian also reported this. Brad Reed here is on Raw Story. He said it with an interview he said it during an interview with New York Magazine. So stress related, dealing with Donald Trump. That's why he got a stroke. I kid you not. And much of it has to do with like what we're doing right now, that we're showing his BS tweets. He said them. He wrote them. Robert and I didn't write them. He wrote them. So I don't know what the hell he's so upset about. You wrote them yourself, Frank. Be mad at yourself. All right. What the hell does Donald Trump have to do with your dumb ass predicting that Hillary Clinton would win the election? And here it is, what I was trying to show you before I bumped myself. Here's where you can see his geo location and what he was doing. Give me a break. Give me a break, dude.
On election night, he told everybody Hillary had won. You could cash it up and go home. But so when you see
Luntz, and Florida too. You remember? There was no chance that Donald Trump was going to win Florida, according to Frank Luntz, which I remember that back and forth like it was yesterday. I'm like, what are you talking about, Frank? Look at Pinellas County. What the hell are you talking about? It's Republican +7 right now. Hillsborough. I don't know who you are, but Hillsborough. Okay, fatso, let me tell you who I am. I live in Florida. I've been polling this state for years, and I'm telling you Hillsborough County hasn't been a bellwether since Bush v. Kerry. What are you talking about? Oh, my God.
Real briefly for Stargate 404 is a little bit late. That's the Des Moines poll is the Ann Seltzer poll. Yes, indeed. She actually was sitting on the big Trump lead, which only now has been publicly disclosed. They waited to publish that until she could say Harris is closer in Iowa now. She has Trump up 4, which is a 4-point movement from where she had Trump in 2020. And by the way, that's what's consistent. If you look at like polls using like methods, using like modes from like time periods, almost all of them, and credit here to On Point Politics and some others, have Trump doing 4 to 5 points better than he was in 2016 or 2020. Which, by the way, would be completely consistent.
Would be consistent.
That almost exactly my prediction from 6 weeks ago.
That would be consistent.
And consistent with your polling data, consistent with it, which is just accurate rather than having to be inaccurate again. But it's a good transition. So if people see Frank Luntz putting out garbage, when you see Frank Luntz lecturing about how wonderful Haitian migrants are for Springfield, Ohio, and how it net benefits everybody, understand Frank is serving his real masters. Those
Chamber of Commerce.
He's been a corporate whore his whole life. That's what he's about. He's about fake data and fake narratives to promote the agenda of the Pfizers of the world, of the business roundtables of the world, of the big corporations of the world. It's part of why he and so many of that world hate Trump.
Yes.
Trump's tariff proposals is to restore American industry and restore American manufacturing at the expense of foreign nations and these global corporations that don't give a rat's rear end about America.
Yep.
But it also, I mean, did we call it or did we call it? I mean, not only predict everything was going to happen with how the media was going to handle the debate, that the media was going to be biased, that it was that Trump walked into another trap in that regard, that some of his campaign staff is still in denial, like Susan Wiles and Chris LaCivita, about how that worked, that no Republican should ever do that again. Enough's enough. And called how the Democrats would claim she won, that all the, people forget, other than Biden's summer poll where they wanted Biden out, every single poll has shown Trump losing every single debate for forever. It means nothing. It's garbage. You can throw it out the window. And that they would create fake 4 to 5 point polls and say she did well. But what we also told you is what voters actually care about, how Trump could actually win the debate on the merits in a way that matter, which is moving voters, is make sure your issues dominate the debate, number one, and that he did well at. Despite all the efforts to fix the debate by the media, the reality is immigration, the economy, World War III kept coming up over and over again. And then we said the best way to win a debate, at least in the near short term, is dominate the viral moment afterwards. And the best way to dominate the viral moment, we're, I think, the only people giving this advice, use something visual and visceral. And what was at the time we said had great potential to be visual and visceral? We said if Trump would talk about them eating the dogs and the cats, and we were cheering him on doing it, saying, please do it. That got right into Trump world. We said, watch, it will absolutely dominate the viral debate. And all the media's plans will go sideways because they wanted to spend a week talking about, look at how great Harris was. Look at how presidential she is. Look at how Trump just loses his temper so much. Look at how Trump is in denial about blah, 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 blah. Instead, we got songs, we got memes, even the media's, shaking and frothing at the mouth. They're talking about eating the cats because it was so perfect. We nailed that.
Eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Eat the cat.
I mean, it's songs. It'll be known 20 years from now. Well, we said this would be the most viral moment. Credit to Trump. He realized what was happening midway through, and he's like, all right, I'm going to talk about eating the cats and the dogs.
As most people know, my daughter is a dancer, and unbelievably, it was like, that they all do these TikTok dances. I mean, it's a thing, and basically, they did this, dude. It was hilarious, and she's like, Dad, there's like eat the cat dance, and I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, you gotta, eat the cat dance.
Fun to post one of them.
Oh my God, I would love her to let me do that, but I don't think she will. I really don't think she will.
Okay.
Yeah, but
look,
I
we
would
got all the
love
other
it.
meme songs. We can, in case anybody hasn't seen one, we can share one of those.
Let's do it. Let's find a meme, Dan. Let's find one.
Well, I love the lefty who was like, oh, this is so shocking. Oh, OMG. Because this was why we said it was perfect. They wouldn't be able to help themselves. They would take the bait. They would expose the elitists that they are, the snobs that they are, the America haters that they are by grabbing onto this issue. They wouldn't be able to stay away from it. It was like the perfect Trump troll. They would have to end up talking about illegal immigrants doing terrible, and other immigrant groups doing that. Harris is mass importing into the United States and bragging about, by the way.
Let's show one.
You can see the clips. But yeah,
let's show one.
He wanted to create a song to mock Trump, and of course it becomes Trump the hero. Everybody loves it. Everybody on the right loves the songs.
Let's watch.
They're eating the dogs.
Hold on. Let's show these people this stuff. Okay, here we go. It took me a second. Here we go. So here's 4 examples.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Eat the cat. Eat the cat.
Dude, this is too much. On and on. There's another one.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat.
I mean, Robert, you could go on and on and on with these things. That and honestly, what we heard from the voter was what he ended this with, which was basically saying, that what he ended it with, which was basically saying, that, why didn't she, whoa, that was a lot about, why didn't she do what she says she's going to do? This was a powerful, powerful line of attack against Hillary Clinton in 2016. Hillary, you had 40 years. That was such a powerful moment. And you just said before we did the cat meme that, we always see these polls. There's always that, Trump loses the debate. And I think it's like dawned on me this year. And I mean, not that I didn't know it, but it's like really important doing this survey of undecided voters who watch the debate, which we're going to put out soon. It's not a huge sample, but because that there wasn't, out of the 3,000 and something that we released in that data set, it's weighted down. So there technically was like 200, almost 300, 280 maybe people who said they were undecided. And of those, they always lied. That's like 90%, 88 technically, who said, oh yeah, I'm going to watch the debate. Come on, give me a break. So not that many answered back. And we asked them, if you are going to, then you mind if we interview afterwards and get some thoughts? And it's very clear that people don't seem to, and it is clear to us, it should be clear to everybody, it doesn't matter if they think, Harris won or Biden or Hillary. That isn't who won the debate, is not necessarily who they're going to vote for. Or so it's like looking at the early vote and saying there is X number of Democrats. Well, you don't really know who that person, who those people voted for. So reading the early vote tea leaves can be really dangerous. It's the same thing with the debate. Yes, they're saying that, Kamala won, and it's not actually as big of a win as some of these polls suggest, but that doesn't accurately predict who they say they're going to vote for. And what we found out in this little study, this little micro study, is that people who, let's say they were not wanting to vote for Trump, the problem Harris has and Democrats have in general, didn't matter who they ran against Trump, is that life was better under Trump, and even the people who don't want to vote for him accept that and acknowledge that. All right. Only rabid partisans do not. And the undecideds aren't rabid partisans. They're also more male than they are female. They're about 60+% male. And they're also 45% conservative as opposed to the rest of the entire sample. I think this month was only like 34% conservative. So it's much more conservative and moderate than the entire overall sample. And even those who didn't want to vote for Trump really needed Harris to say, here is why. They needed her to acknowledge things are not good under Biden and that she's going to be different, not another Biden term, and that you can expect better days ahead because I'm going to do this differently. That didn't happen. That, and most of them, especially the undecideds, are very concerned that she is too liberal. That attack has hit, and it's even the New York Times poll found that, Robert. It says 50% think that she's too liberal, too progressive. The opposite is true of Trump. 50% said that he's right in the middle, like he's a down the road guy when it comes to the country. Like, that is a problem. By the way, that was the case in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. Even in polls that weren't favorable to Trump, we all saw that. Yeah, Hillary's more moderate Democrat. It's not Bernie, but she's still got left-wing policies. Trump is more moderate than Hillary Clinton. And that was a problem for her. So like this group of, I mean, I wouldn't call them double haters because I don't think they would say they hate both the candidates, but they're not thrilled with the choices. These, the part of these undecideds. But he took those undecideds almost 2-1 and ended almost 2-1. So, and the problem is too, we spoke with some people who were leaned in our poll, right? They leaned to Harris before the debate. And some of them said now, that is not what I was expecting her to do, and they wanted her to do it. They wanted her to convince them, and she didn't. So, they're pushing these polls. All they did was succeeding, I think, because I can see it. And I had before, like, we can move on, but like, I was just going to show people what I mean by stratification and setting quotas. Like, they're not willing to go in these marketplaces. They're just getting this very basic top level data, target by region, nothing deeper than that. Yeah, I want like 47% men, 53% women, which, by the way, you don't always get. And you're certainly not going to get men who are appropriately educated, versus what, it's almost assuredly going to come back way too educated. If we don't set like specific quotas and we stratify each, well, I don't want to give certain things away, but it's multi-leveled. I almost did. You have to do that. It costs more money. They're going to be willing to do it even if they understood it. And if you don't, those men are definitely coming back way too liberal. They're coming back way too educated. One of the big ones, and I mean, this isn't a secret, this, is geography. Like, they are not doing this. And I was just going to show people a little bit of an example of what a top line basic looks like. All right, let me see if I can just pull this up real quick and show them before we move on. Here is the top line quotas, okay? And you may notice that it's not region, okay? It is, but it's deeper than that. And then we're going to go even deeper. And it's all by zip code. So you see there, what are we starting with? Division. And then you have to stratify, meaning, what about men? What about women? What about education by area type, right? So are you getting your rural numbers are insane? Do they not make any sense? That's probably because you did not set these quotas and you didn't stratify correctly or at all. And you're going to get back this ridiculously Democratic or liberal leaning rural sample, which is like what happened in the New York Times, man, in 2020. Do you remember that? And now this thing has been, I've heard people make this reference everywhere, Robert. It's stuck when you said it. Like, Nate Cohen found the only public school liberal librarian, like in Greene County, Pennsylvania. I think it was Greene or Beaver or something, whatever it was. But that's why. And so this is a very basic thing. You're going to have to pay more for this. You're going to have to bid more for this. And they're not doing it. And they're getting that data set, and it's just going. Same thing with Ipsos. The Reuters poll is not a different poll from the new ABC News poll. That poll is the same poll. It's the Ipsos marketplace. Don't give me this shit. Oh, I know what's going to happen. People are going to be like, Rich, you know full well that we could easily exclude people from who have taken prior surveys in the last 30 days. Good. Show me where you did it. Because I don't believe you. I think you're full of shit. I don't think you're doing that at all. I think you're going the cheap way. You don't care. And that's all there is to it. I mean, that's what I think, dude. I really believe that,
And I think one of the main points we made with these debates is that the way you win a debate is you make the sale. It's not you become the most likable. This is something Trump, as an innate salesman, has understood from the time he entered politics. He could have, there's large parts of Trump that are very likable in person, that a large part of his base understands about him, but the ordinary voter doesn't. It's because Trump sacrifices likability for branding. He wants to be branded as strong. He wants to be branded as determined.
Yeah.
He wants to be branded as, sort of unstoppable and indomitable. What that means is the charitable side of his personality gets masked. The side of his personality that finds out a kid that is facing some real hardships, would love to, is a fan who's like 8 years old, and so he sits down and pens him a personal happy birthday card that the kid is going to remember the rest of his life. But we won't see that in a Trump ad. Right. I mean, Trump's the guy who gives $100 tips to everybody as he's walking out of the restaurant or the store or anywhere else. But you won't see that in a Trump ad. Trump wants to be seen as strong because he prefers branding. Why? Because branding matters more in politics.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the most liked salesman. You want to be the salesman who makes the most sales. Yeah. And often that's the salesman that people don't like. That's the salesman people aren't necessarily inviting over for dinner. And the problem the Democrats have is they're all a bunch of professional class kids who grew up doing things like this was part of DeSantis's problem. Who grew up doing model UN, model Congress, this kind of crap, extemporaneous speaking. They think the way you win any competition is style, that substance is irrelevant, that merits is inconsequential. So they didn't go into that debate saying, how do we convince people who are skeptical of the Biden administration that Harris will be any different? How do we convince people that she's got a solution on the economy when the economy and inflation are as bad as they are? How do we convince people that she'll do something about immigration, given it's getting out of control? How do we do something about world war being at high risk with conflicts in both Europe and the Middle East raging globally? They didn't look at it either, because it was a brilliant opportunity. You got a quarter of the country that doesn't know who she is, and you get to introduce her anew without having to go through a contested primary with a fixed debate panel in her pocket. And yet they didn't even think to do anything substantive. They didn't even think to reintroduce her substantively. Like if I'd been on the Democratic side, I would have gone in there and announced something dramatic: a peace deal in Europe, a peace deal in the Middle East, a massive effort to send the National Guard or military to the border, a major effort to either send everybody money or some sort of control mechanism that people could really believe would help with inflation or the economy. She does nothing. She got out two minor Clinton-esque 1990s little tweet, policies. We'll give you a little bit here, and we'll give you a little bit over here, and a little bit over there. Nothing that anybody thought, oh, that's going to solve my problem. No idea about how to dominate the viral part of the conversation post-debate, in terms of the water cooler, in terms of online, in terms of social media, what people would remember from that debate. She didn't understand any of it, because they think, oh, look, I wore the right shirt. I wore the right outfit. I had earrings that somehow look like the earrings that allow you to have a little microphone in your ear, but put that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. You think, and I'm going to play something that I think proves that you're right. And that what we're saying has validity. Otherwise he would never have said it. But before I play it, you think they gave, it looks like, I don't know, this story doesn't have legs, or maybe I just missed it. There was supposedly an employee who was going to blow the whistle that they leaked her the debate questions. I don't know what happened with that story, or whether it, lost any,
Reportedly, the affidavit's been sent to Speaker Johnson. Somebody filed the affidavit, and that people in the high-ranking positions in the House know who the affiant is.
Okay, so this is not a dead issue. It wasn't not true. It's just okay. No. I think there's 0% chance that they didn't. Correct.
Yeah, we predicted it in advance. I mean, you talked about it. The WikiLeaks emails with Jake Tapper. Of course, they coordinated in advance. I mean, that was our point. Was the Trump campaign people should have at least been, seeding the field for Americans to understand, and for their base to understand before the debate, that ABC was not going to keep their word. Like, there should have been a week or so of ABC picks as one of their debate moderators, Kamala Harris's sorority sister. There should have been a lot more about, hey, here's what ABC agreed to. ABC agreed not to fact check anybody. And so that should have been, everybody should have known that in Trump world. All of it's so the fact that, this is my criticism. Trump understands he can walk into any debate and he's going to own it, because he understands what he's actually there for, and the other people don't. He understands that better than anybody. So I understand why Trump did it. Our point was he had unique leverage, set the precedent not to do these bogus debates anymore. So I get why Trump did it. We wanted him to use his leverage differently. That's fine. That ship has sailed. The complaint is with his campaign people not properly framing it for everybody else as to what was coming. We were some of the only people saying don't expect
this is what is going to happen.
The summer Biden debate. Everybody got amnesia right away. The summer Biden debate clearly was one of the things I was wrong on. I didn't think they were going to take Biden out. They clearly did plan on taking Biden out with the debate. Those people pointing out were right. I was wrong on that.
Me too.
Because I didn't think, I
didn't think they'd wipe their asses with 15 million votes, bro. Like,
I didn't think they thought Harris could do better. I thought they knew otherwise. Mark Halpert is leaking out to everybody that the inside data shows she's doing worse than Biden. That's where she's heading.
This is
doing worse than Joe Biden.
This is what I don't understand. Like, the media is all in. I mean, I do understand it, but they're all in, and everyone knows in the media world, in our world, everyone knows what the private data says. And the private data says, folks, for those of you out there who don't know, that she was already down in Pennsylvania. She maintains down. We're going to get this bogus USA Today poll too that's going to come out later today, right, or tomorrow. And I guarantee you they're going to show Harris up. I mean, it's so predictable. But Harris is...
Last week we said Harris is about 2 weeks of Harris up 4 to 5 points. There'll be some outliers that have her up 8, 9.
The rest of September, this is the way it's going to be. And if you didn't want this to happen and you're the Trump campaign, then you should never have done this damn debate. I'm going to say this one more time. The ship has sailed, like Robert said. but this is what he should have done. Yes, all you did was give them the excuse to set their response bias and their narrative and get all of it in motion again, just as it was is starting to calm down. And now you made this environment everyone's going to have to live with until October, probably in middle of October. They're probably going to push this one out till. I mean, but this is all he should have said, Robert. He should have just said, I'm not going to debate a usurper. She is not the legitimate Democratic nominee. I have already debated the legitimate Democratic nominee. They usurped him and they don't care about democracy. And I'm not going to lend credibility or legitimacy to any part of that process, that undemocratic process. The legitimate nominee is, I already did that and I'm not doing it again. I'm standing up for the 15 million voters that they don't care about, that they wipe their ass with, that's it. Like, I mean, that's not exactly how he should have said it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and at a minimum, if you're going to do one, don't let it be
change the forum.
Yeah. Change the forum.
You're Donald Trump. You could leave a real good reformation for the future of the country. You could do it. He's, whatever.
To Trump's credit,
really pissed.
He's managed to turn this in his favor in terms of real voters. So he's managed to create a viral moment that is so viral it may be remembered for 20 years, which he wouldn't have been able to do without the debate.
Yep.
And secondly, he's managed to focus the attention on the core issues that matter. And he gave her an opportunity that you could probably fairly forecast she would blow, that she would.
You know what? For those who think otherwise, remember, you just brought him up, Robert. Jake Tapper. Anyone can go to the WikiLeaks website right now, type in Jake Tapper DNC. It'll pop right up. You will see that his office, his team, routinely asked the DNC for input on what he should ask during debates of Ted Cruz and ask of Donald Trump and debates. Interviews, right? We have Ted Cruz and Donald Trump on our Sunday show. We're going to talk about foreign policy. Is there anything you want me to ask them? They send back a litany of stuff to be able to, well, we're doing this week. Our line of attack is going to be this. So, if you set it up, right, it would be nice if you asked these, questions, this kind of thing. And they did it. So I went back and looked at that interview. You can clearly see Jake Tapper took their direction. So he acts all outraged. When Donna Brazile gets caught leaking the debate questions to Hillary Clinton, he's a total phony. He was the tip of the spear in the plan to get rid of Joe Biden after that debate. He was constant, nonstop coverage, nonstop about Biden and how he needed to go. All right. Now, here is what he said after the debate. For people who may be doubting, and you're watching the polls and you're doubting what Barnes and I are saying, Jake Tapper would not be doing this if Robert and I were not right. All right. So here, let me play this.
By punting the first question on the economy.
Do you believe Americans are...
Wait.
Vice President Harris began the debate by punting the first question on the economy.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
It went on from there. Despite the economy being the number one issue facing the country, the sitting vice president generally reverted to talking points about a few of her policy proposals. Even Harris allies today are saying that she needs to talk more about what she will do for Americans if elected. Senator Bernie Sanders will be here in a second to talk about more about the need for her to fill in some of those blanks.
He goes on, by the way, I'm not going to play that, but he goes on to shred her for not doing exactly what Robert and I said she needed to do. And Bernie felt that she still left those questions in the minds of undecided voters. And that is what happened.
On the border, another vulnerable issue for Harris, she also dodged.
Would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Okay, that wasn't the question. When asked how she would break through the Israel-Hamas war stalemate.
Hold on, let me just say before we go on, because it goes and does the same thing. We know where we're going with this. David Muir knows what the polling says, and he says it out loud. What would you do different from Biden? He knows what the undecided voters wanted to hear that night because they told him what they wanted to hear. So I want you to frame it like this, David. What are you going to do different from Biden? because that's exactly what the polling suggested she needed to do. He literally had the result because both sides know Tony Fabrizio was right. That poll that he put out, that leaked confidential memo, which wasn't a leaked confidential memo, showing Trump actually gaining and now had 3 in the battleground states. They know that is true. They know she was down in Pennsylvania, despite what this Suffolk poll is going to say tonight or tomorrow. Everyone knows she's down. She's down in her poll. She's down in Trump's polling. It's Minnesota and Michigan for her at this point. And maybe Wisconsin, because it polls and throws everybody off. It polls to the left, so it gets people's, panties in a bunch. It's a very difficult state. The polls Robert and I have brought up many times. All right. And then the Alaska poll, Robert. Oh my God. This poll in Alaska, which Nate Silver seriously entertains on his forecast, Alaska could go for Harris. That poll had Trump winning frigging Alaska by 1 point in 2020. Oh my God, bro, give me a break. I mean, but David Muir knew what the polling said, bro. He knew. You could tell by the way he phrased the question. And here you have Jake Tapper saying exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, and the issue is that the reason why the Democrats didn't prep her wasn't because they didn't know the questions in advance. I have no doubt they coordinated in advance. It was because they believe what matters most is style, is to be declared the debate winner after the election. Yeah. Not to be what you want to know. I mean, I've explained this to lawyers. There'll be consultants that will come in and say, you want to be the most liked lawyer for a trial. No, you don't. You want to get the judge to do what you want them to do. You want to get the jury to give you the verdict that you need them to give you. And whether they like you or don't like you is inconsequential to that. And that's what you discover. Sometimes you need to be disliked in order to get that outcome, by the way. And so it's a misunderstanding of what debates are really about. Trump understood. Harris's camp didn't. That's why Trump won the debate and Harris lost it, even when it was rigged in her favor, because she needed to address the substantive concerns of undecided working class voters and had an extraordinary, unique window to do so. And she blew it. Now, as somebody pointed out in the chat, somebody must be an Archer fan because they were like, language. In terms of Harris. But it just reflects the nature of it. But you're going to continue to get the fake polls. The problem is they can't get around the viral moment. It's still dominating the discussion a week later. That they're going to have to figure out some way to try to transition out of it. But at this point, the cake is baked. That was her last great opportunity to make a meaningful difference. It was the last great opportunity to have fixed polls and reaction bias and media fake narratives, et cetera. That they've already done, that they've already spun out, that they're going to continue to do over the next week. But she needed to actually prevail in the merits, and she did. She didn't change the fundamentals of the race. In fact, the fundamentals are now more deeply entrenched than they were before. That's why every undecided, and this was my question, do you think they'll start to scrap the undecided voter questions, the undecided panels? Because these keep undermining them. Yes, every single time they do the debate narrative.
I absolutely do. I think they'll just start to get rid of all of these data points that aren't good for her. The way that they tried to spin the NAACP poll told me that like whatever isn't spinnable in the least, because that was a stretch, like to frame that as a good poll for her when Joe Biden won over 90, it won like 90% of the black vote, is very difficult to do. I think you've seen the last of the headlines, Robert, that read like Washington pundits agree Kamala won the debate, undecided voters not so sure. You're not going to see very many of these from now on, brother. Because they're just not going to put them out there. Frank Luntz has already declared that debate cost Trump the election. It's over. All right. So he's not going to go run and do his own damn dials. And by the way, speaking of the actual dials, the real polling firm that was on Fox News the next day had independents tracking identically with Donald Trump. You know when else that happened, folks? 2016, when they were saying that Hillary Clinton won, then you would see these ridiculous polls. I just looked, ABC was released their tracking poll a little bit after the debate, mid-September. It wasn't daily yet, I believe, but the mid-September result, Clinton plus 12 after the debate. Clinton plus 12. They didn't narrow that lead to, I believe, what, 4 or 3 or something. They didn't narrow that lead until it was days before the election. Days.
Yeah.
So
The-
I think we're gonna see these anymore, bro. I think that's it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And you really do like comparisons. Everything is really projecting that Trump is going to run 4 to 6 points better, 4 to 7, I should say. 7
4 to
points better
7, yeah.
than 2020. And that if you drop down to the Electoral College, he'll
Yeah, let's
overachieve
do
even
that.
more. We're already seeing that data. Harris, I think, needs to win by at least 5 points. I'm seeing these people put out Harris can win by 2 and win the election. It's like,
I don't
what election are you looking at?
That's
She needs to
Nate
win
Silver.
by 5 or more.
That's Nate Silver. You know, I could seriously see 3. I could see a case for 3. The problem is with that, 3 would only get her like Michigan and maybe Wisconsin, you know, like a 3-point win. You could make a case for that if she does like really if there's some really strange vote breakdowns, you know,
with
but
3,
like
she doesn't get Pennsylvania.
She doesn't get
Doesn't get
Pennsylvania,
Arizona, doesn't get Georgia. She's
No,
still DOA.
yeah,
I mean,
and here's why. Here's a bigger
She's going to have a bigger gap between the popular vote and the Electoral College vote than either Hillary or, this is my other premise, than Hillary or Biden.
That's what Rui is arguing in the Liberal Patriot at the end of the week last week after the debate. He said, I'm so glad you're all so jubilant, but this is not good. If we're not going to win this election, polls be damned, because of course he is a Democrat, folks, and he wrote The Emerging Democratic Majority with John Judas, right? They're like gods to the left, all right? The left pays attention when Rui writes an article, and he said, listen, all that matters is that she is still doing significantly worse than Joe Biden with non-college voters, not whites, voters. And let's look at Georgia. Let's look at these states. If she really is doing that, she would need to do unbelievably, like by the true definition of the word, unbelievably better with white voters to a point, to a degree that it's not believable. It's just not like that's not going to happen. That could happen in polling, which it did in New York Times polling. It did in many other. He's not winning the white vote, dude, by like 6 points. It's not happening. You know, that's a response bias and a failure to make sure that your quotas are first of all even set or right? Because look at this, man, before we go, I've referenced it twice, but I failed to show it to people. Look at this. Most black voters, 63. That's an awful number for a Democratic candidate. Plan to support Harris compared with 13% for Trump, according to the new NAACP survey, which interviewed 1,000 registered black voters across the U.S. from August 6th to August 12th. But 26% of black men under 50 said they were supporting Trump versus 49% who backed Harris. For black men above 50, 77% said that they supported Harris. 67% of black women said they would support Harris, while 8% said that they're supporting Trump. Folks, that's a lot of undecided voters on black women. That is a lot, and I'm telling you, that's bullshit. That means that there are more Trump supporters and they just don't want to admit it. If you go to our social bias indicators and you look at who tells you that they're uncomfortable speaking with pollsters and whether or not they believe in a shy Trump vote, look by race, and even better, look by race and gender. And you will see that black women are one of the groups that display a higher than normal uncomfortable, state. They're uncomfortable. It's not, that is not good at all for them, Robert. That's a disaster. And by the way, if it ends up like 2016, where black men were nearly as much as black women, then Trump's going to get more than 15% of the black vote. He's going to, or 13%, excuse me, what this poll says. They have it as a traditional like 7 or, they have a traditional like 9 to 5 split, 8 to 6 split. That could happen. But if it's more like 16, where they were pretty much even, then Trump's going to do very well. And your buddy, Dave, man, he's, I was talking to him not long ago, and he's like, is it me or am I being unreasonable by saying that Trump could get like 16% of the black vote? And I told them, we're talking about Viva Fry, folks, I'm like, no, Viv, not at all. And their polling errors for subgroups, they are larger than the overall sample size. So sure, yeah, he could be getting only like 12 in some of these polls, or saying 22, whatever. It could be 12. Guess what? It could be 28, 20. I mean, that's how polling error works. I'm telling you, I didn't see black women last time coming, Robert. I mean, I saw that a little bit, but not how it actually turned out on the ground, so I don't know. You tell me, brother. You tell me. I think it could be even worse.
What all of because I would say what all of this relates to. I was trying to
in the Electoral College. The
Electoral College and the voter groups that we talked about all the way back that these polling data points are now constantly reflecting. Let me see if do I have it? Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'm just going to show them the exit polls too, from 2020, because this is what was, because what does this mean for the Electoral College? I mean, when Robert brought up Georgia, she's not getting Georgia. She's not. Michigan, she has to rely on black voters in Michigan. Absolutely does. Oakland County is not going to be enough for her. She has to rely on black voters in Michigan. I just don't see it, man. Like Saginaw, I just don't see it.
I'll tell people a shortcut. Look at the recent survey of who says they don't, they're really worried about not being able to pay basic things, which just hit a new high recently. Yeah. You look at the state breakdown, it's disproportionately younger black voters that are reporting yes. And one of the states that flashes red in that area is Michigan. Yeah. So she can't win Wisconsin without a big black vote out of Milwaukee. It's not a big black population, but she can't afford margin loss. Can't afford it out of Michigan. Can't afford it out of Philadelphia. Can't afford it out of Atlanta. Can't afford it out of North Carolina.
Pittsburgh.
Honestly, can't afford it out of North Las Vegas.
No.
So the numbers that I put out when I went by state, and we went out, I went through each demographic group. I think my recollection is I called Harris to win black vote by 55 points, and Harris, and right now NAACP only has her up 50. So that at a time it should be peak time for her. So everything data wise is pointing towards Trump, and in terms of I haven't changed my prediction at all from before. It's still the same. I still have Trump winning 50%, Harris winning 48%, third parties winning 2%, the total vote being somewhere around 152 to 155 million votes. There's more data points, by the way, out there that show Trump what we talked about all the way back and what was in your poll, that Trump is winning 3-1, 4-1 amongst Kennedy voters. Yeah. So you could just go back and look at some of those polls from early on before he announced and give him, basically take the Kennedy vote, take 1% going to third party or dropping out. Let's say there's 5% in a single state.
Right.
Take 1 point, give it to other third parties or not voting. Take 1%, give it to Harris, and then take 3% and give it to Trump. And he, by the way, has really ramped that up. I'll give him and his team credit for knowing how to continue, and same with Tulsi Gabbard, how to push forward on an endorsement. Nicole Shanahan is doing ad after ad after ad. And remember, that target audience is the audience that's the most vulnerable electorate, most movable electorate, is the overlap of the core Kennedy voting constituency. Working class, minorities, millennials, Zoomers, that don't trust the Democratic brand anymore, don't trust the Republican brand. These are the people that Tom Beauvier of Target Smart is telling the Democratic Party are going to vote 80-20 Democratic. Even though their registering is unaffiliated, he's like, don't worry, they're secretly Democrats. Yeah. And they're going to vote 80-20 Democrat. No, they were thinking about voting Kennedy. And now Kennedy and Shanahan keep targeting them with pro-MAGA messages, with ads about MAGA, ads about TDS, about Trump derangement syndrome, ads about, Kennedy's become a very effective spokesperson for Trump, and Shanahan, who's got a very big budget, she can put whatever money she wants behind anything she wants. You even have Bill Ackman attacking the Democrats these days. They are, like, for example, Taylor Swift would only be significant if it was culturally reflective of something. all of these influencers, young male influencers that keep going for Trump and endorsing Trump with 2 million, 4 million, 5 million, 10 million followers on various social media. It's not that they're going to change their voters. It's that they're representative
It
of
just
something.
represent right. So Taylor Swift, folks, isn't like this huge revelation. She represents a Democratic constituency. She's an upscale white woman. All right. I mean, that's it. By the way, your prediction is spot on. And your prediction came before this poll, by the way. Your prediction is like spot on with Atlas Intel, almost identical to Atlas Intel. I wanted to ask you what you thought, because of course this is your state, what you thought about the Nevada poll from Trafalgar that has Harris up by 1. Here's my problem. I know it's a tricky state to poll. I get it. And it's a defendable poll. It is. It's only 1. It's not like they got her up 10 points or something. Here's the problem. In 2008, the Democrats had a election margin win of just under 121,000 votes. They had a registration lead at that time of over 20,000. In 2012, without Mitt Romney versus Obama, Mitt Romney got closer, but he still lost by about 68,000 votes. And the margin lead for Democrats was 22,381 in registration. It had declined, right? 16 Republicans were at a 61,000 vote deficit over, actually, it was just under 62,000. And Hillary Clinton barely won with 27,000 votes. In 2020, which actually represented less of a shift to the right than the country, that's why Nevada is actually still moving to the right. Biden won with less than 34,000. It was 33.5, basically. But Democrats, their registration edge had fallen to 53,820. So overall, the average is about a 29,408 registration lead for Democrats in races, presidential races since 2008 that they won. All right, I was talking to Seth Keshel about this too, by the way, right? With Trump, however, it was 57,718, and yet the average margin is only 38,000 votes. Today, it's 10,000. That's it. I just don't know where they're getting the votes from. You know, Alita Benson, who's like heads up the Trump effort over there in Nevada, is just elated Alita. I'm going to start calling her, because they're thinking, and I'm not going to say too much because I don't, some of it's in confidence. And also Democrats can kiss my ass. Their thinking was Nevada is an off the grid state, man. Like, people go there and they live off the grid, dude. And it's hard to poll because of that, And if they can get some of these like orphan Democratic voters to register with them or register as an independent, just so they know those voters are targets, and that they're not going to be there in the bank for Democrats. Like, Democrats have always had tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands in the voter registration pool that they could go to in Clark County when they had a deficit, and we'll just fill in these more ballots. They don't have that anymore. They don't have it. And Elite has been, they're doing a great job targeting these off the grid people who are never going to take a poll, by the way. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like a 1-point lead under those circumstances is nothing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, nothing.
Yeah, the Nevada's tough to poll for 2 reasons. 3 reasons. One, you have the off the grid people. Second reason is a lot of transients who kept their old cell phone.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're using cell phone list, probably 20-25% of Nevadans have a cell phone number that's outside of the state. And so they never got a 702 number, the local area code here. So if that's your database point, other things, it's tricky, very tricky. Like I have multiple phones. One is a 702 phone that gets bombarded with polling. One is a Malibu zip code that never gets hit with any Nevada polling, right? So that, like, I've tested this by registering in different places to see how it goes up.
Yeah.
So that's a whole group that gets missed. The third problem is the Asian vote is distinct here. And it's very, very, when you see a poll that's more Republican than normal, like what you get out of Nevada, it's one of the only states that's had a pro-Republican bias at times in the polling data. It's because they don't get the Asian vote right. And so now, in terms of predicting the actual election, that the problem for Harris is that this state is the reason why it flipped in the first place below average number of evangelical voters. So it was a Democratic lean state pre-Trump. It's the reason why Jackie Rosa, the main thing she's running against Sam Brown is on abortion. This has a low evangelical population. It's a gambling. I mean, the city's known as Sin City. You don't have the only religious folk that are coming here are missionaries. So it's not
standing outside the casinos, like,
exactly.
God, let me save your soul.
This is a
Don't
state that has
gamble.
legalized brothels. I mean, so no, we're not going to have an overrepresentation of evangelicals. We got a few more Mormons than normal, but nothing like Utah or even Arizona to a degree.
Yeah,
and
actually,
a lot of them in the rural population.
This is
The older voters came from the Midwest, and you go even older historical. Why was Nevada a lean Republican state back in the day? It was like Arizona, was settled by a lot of Southerners, people from Texas, Arkansas, Kansas. To this day, the most popular barbecue in Nevada is Southwestern barbecue. It's like brisket rather than Southeastern barbecue. But exactly. Now, what you've transitioned into over the past 20 years, major Asians, including Hawaiians, have immigrated here, number one. Second, major population growth amongst Mexican Americans, many of whom have casino union jobs. And the third is young people from all over the country. And this voter group was a very pro-Obama voter group, but is also a very pro-Trump group because it's disproportionate. The reason why it's a Trump lean state. Trump, leaned 2 points more Trump in 2020. I think about 2 to 3 points more Trump. Well, maybe 1 to 2 more points in 2016, whereas it was a lean Democratic state under the Obama era. Is because there's an underrepresentation of professional managerial class people. We have PhDs, MAs, post-college degrees. One of the lowest populations in the country is here in the state of Nevada. So the rural areas are going to be massively pro-Trump. They love Trump. He represents that old populist history. Older voters lean Trump because they disproportionately come from the Midwest and the South. The key group that he needed to win over were younger minorities and millennials, particularly young, like Filipinos. We got a big Filipino population here. Koreans. We have a decent sized Korean population. It's not a coincidence. We have a lot of Korean barbecue, a lot of Hawaiian barbecue, a lot of Filipino food throughout the state. Okay. By the way, a lot of these groups historically Asians love gambling in general, but Filipinos love to gamble. Chinese love to gamble. A lot of South Koreans love to gamble because it's part of it's part of a religious tradition that when you win at gambling, you've been blessed by the gods. Right? It's almost a spiritual experience. So it's totally different than everything else. So I got friends that are in all of those communities. They're in the Mexican American community, and a lot of them are lean Democratic people themselves. And what they have been reporting is the same thing we've been seeing in the data all across the country. Asian vote, the Filipino votes, massive shift towards Trump. The Korean vote, Hawaiian vote, we've seen it in the Hawaiian polls, massive shift towards Trump. Probably what happened with the fires there that Biden never meaningfully did anything for, while they're busy giving jobs and housing and cars and everything else to every group around the world to import into places like Springfield, Ohio. They still can't fix the fires, and they still can't help the people of Hawaii. So a lot of them shifting towards Trump. They were natural Trump-inclined voters, but their social media influencing space, their podcasting space, what was hip and cool and chic was to be anti-Trump in 2016, was to be lean anti-Trump in 2020. It's the group that's massively shifted. And what I'm hearing on the ground here, anecdotally, is consistent with and they've been reliable in the past as to how those voter groups are going, is consistent with all the polling data we've seen and the policy issues impacting that voter group. So the problem for Harris is I think she'll do a little bit better than Biden would have amongst post-college voters. I think she's going to underperform amongst everybody else. And that means in Nevada, if Trump wins the national vote by 2 points, Trump wins Nevada by 4 to 5. And so that's where I have Trump.
Yeah, I think that, that state can be real funny. It's like,
Harris is internal. They've leaked out that they don't think they have as much of a shot in Nevada.
Yes,
they're spending gobs of money. They're spending 4 times more on TV advertising here than Trump is, which tells you they think they're behind, but they think they can make it back.
Yeah.
The problem is first of all, watch for a low turnout in North Las Vegas. Outside of Obama, a lot of those voters don't vote anyway. but there was mass mail-in voting in 2020. Now we got a lot of liberalized rules, though not as bad as 2020, but still, I mean, I still get ballots from multiple people.
I was
still
just
get,
going to say, do you
I
still,
get
is that
efforts
still
to
happening?
register to
Yeah.
vote in the name of other people here, right? So
Yeah.
that's how they're. Oh, and that takes us to the last topic of tonight. Today, time to debunk Garrett Archer of Arizona. And
Oh, let's get that going here. Hold on, let me pull that up. I had that. Where are you? Where are you? There it is. Here we go. Because this is, I was going to ask you if you did get multiple ballots. This is actually a bigger win for election integrity than some people like him want to suggest. All right. This is a big deal, dude. This is a big deal. But go ahead. I'll let you go.
Yeah. So the same as Nevada. Garrett Archer is a election fraud denier. In fact, he came out today and said that there's no evidence any administrative person anywhere has ever done anything wrong. That was a shock. I didn't know. Basically, all our bureaucrats are like Jesus, according to Garrett Archer.
It's unbelievable when there are, let me just say, when there literally, Robert, are Justice Department indictments on their website right now in states like Pennsylvania, in states like New Jersey, where we all knew Atlantic City, Wisconsin. This is not just little stuff. This is them accusing election judges, former officials of election fraud, of committing election fraud. Unbelievable stuff, man. Just absolutely unbelievable stuff. And for them to say there's nothing is like, what are you talking about? There are actual indictments. Like, what are you talking about? It's just crazy. It's crazy.
And his latest routine is to pretend that the only reason the vote will be delayed, being reported on election day, is because of all these tight rules governing ballot chain of custody. That somehow in Arizona they just can't count them for days. Can't count them for days. Well, the other excuse is to claim in Pennsylvania that the reason for requiring dating, requiring signatures, requiring all of these procedures, that these things have no purpose at all other than disfranchisement of votes. What he's misleading people about is how, in fact, the vote fraud occurs, because he pretends vote fraud never ever occurs.
Never does. It never does.
Is the reason why the Democratic Party agreed to many of these protocols for mail-in balloting in Pennsylvania was they wanted to find ways to be able to detect fraud, because it's tough to prove otherwise. When somebody's ballot does not represent their honest vote. That's what you're trying to figure out. And these technicalities, as he likes to call them, are there as indicia and badges of fraud when not complied with. Because what he's not talking about is what Richard and I have explained many times, that what is likely to occur, because you can't trust the U.S. Postal Service. So he goes, why do they care about the dating inside the ballot? Because they don't trust that a Postal Service person will put a false date on it. That's what Baris wants. That's what we've talked about, and that's what Garrett Archer doesn't want to talk about.
So important.
He doesn't want to talk about there being anybody at the Postal Service who might put an inaccurate postal date on when a ballot was sent. And we know
from
2020, a whole bunch of ballots showed up on election day.
Yeah,
I mean, they missed their targets in all these key states. That's why it looked like Trump was going to win, by Biden's own campaign people. You can go back and follow media.
I was just going to say, we did an entire episode on those targets and what those numbers were, and them being public now and out there. Yeah, I mean, they weren't trying to make them public, but that they were in fact public, and they had missed those marks. And when the ballots when we don't know when these ballots were mailed, when they were received, it's like, folks, they can simply just figure out what they need, since what they need with the margin that they have right now, and they can submit those ballots and later on and after the fact. That when Florida was doing election reform, after the hanging Chad disaster and all that, the dating of ballots and the what we call election day deadlines, meaning you must, as a supervisor of election, you must tell us by 7:30 at night how many early in-person votes do you have, how many election or absentee ballots do you have, and then obviously election day votes still going until the polls close. But 30 minutes before the polls close, every supervisor of election must submit that information, and you can why? It's obvious, because after the fact, people are going to be trying to stuff the ballot box with late arriving ballots that really aren't late arriving at all. They just made them because they know the margin that they need to overcome. And it was like self-evident. Like, what are you, an idiot? Like, why?
You throw in drop boxes, right? You don't even
Now,
need US
now
Postal
it's drop,
Service compliance because
Rum-
the drop
rum
box,
back.
because you can just dump them at the drop box,
That's
and
right.
you can all of a sudden have a bunch of ballots that show up out of the blue. Because the other thing
Rumbeck
you remember,
said that they were. Rumbeck says they were picked up actually 3 days before.
on election night, they know who has and hasn't voted.
Yes.
So they can have a bunch of ballots and just claim they were votes of certain people that they know haven't shown up in the voter on election days voting, and boom, and deliver them and dump them. And the point of all of these internal tests, the signature match that you formally requested about, you signing under penalty of perjury that it's your vote, not somebody else's,
someone else's,
and an accurate date is a way of preventing that fraud from occurring. It doesn't guarantee it, but it helps prevent it. And so when he's saying that this has no purpose other than disfranchisement, either Garrett Archer is an idiot or he's lying.
I don't think he's an idiot. I know Garrett. I
think he's an idiot. He doesn't come across to me as a deceptive guy in that sense, but he does come across as deliberately dumb.
It could be.
In the law, we would call it willful blindness.
I was just gonna say he could be like willfully naive, like, you know what I'm saying, like, right. That's how, because I have a good relationship with Garrett. You know, we've always been friendly with each other, but the fact of the matter is, it's like, this has got to be one or the other. It can't be like, you know, just it cannot be totally that he believes this because he's thought long and hard about it. He also has a very what's the word? I guess. I mean, I don't want to say it's not like a corrupt thing, but it is unusual access to the election results and data and the entire system, especially in Maricopa County, for somebody who's supposedly no longer within the government itself. So this is not, you know, no journalist gets access to these numbers. Garrett has some weird relationship where he is privy to information he should not be privy to. All right. And it's not right. It's not normal. And there's something, just to me, inherently wrong with that relationship or that access, that improper access. And it's like, you know, boys club at the worst, something like boys club at the worst, which is bad enough, Robert, or he gets that access to with the intention, or I would say with the understanding that he pushes bullshit in return. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that to me is problematic. And, you know, again, we've always been friendly. And I even agreed with him. So do you on some of the stuff he's gone after, some of those election fraud people that are just totally full of it. You and I have gone after some of the same people as Garrett, you know, because they're just wrong, man. They're just wrong. And they make the whole effort look worse, you know, because then people like Garrett jump on them and make everyone look stupid. You know, but it's 4:10. Laura's telling me we got to get to the super chats. All right. So I guess, but that's what, you know, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that, but I just feel like he's one of those guys who can jump on the fraudsters.
Garrett has got so committed. Yeah, I mean, Garrett's got so committed to denying election fraud exists that he's now saying things that are just false, and he sounds like a Mark Elias apologist and spokesperson.
Yeah.
So if he wants to be perceived as a balanced person, he's also got into there's no way Haitians could be eating any animals. I mean,
come on,
how do you know nothing about Haitian culture? But so he's starting to bleed into Nate Silver kind of territory, promoting Elliot Morris, all this other stuff. Well, you're going to lose your perception of impartiality when you start doing that. So and you know, I'm going to call you out on it when you do. You can have an honest disagreement. I don't got a problem with that. But if you start saying that any effort to have election integrity is really disfranchisement, that's just garbage. That's talking points from criminal money launderer Mark Elias. That's what that is.
Yeah, let me let's say this is going to be an easy one. I'll tell you right now. Look at this. Brother, I'm a non-combat vet, Marine vet. Do I need to tell Secret Service how to do their effing job? At this point, it's not an accident. I didn't think the first one was an accident. I got a good friend. It was job. It basically is to kill people overseas. And he said, immediately, well, he's not, I mean, I guess he's a friend, but yeah, you never know with these guys. I mean, and he told me flat out, he was like, I recognize my own handiwork when I see it. They found a mark that they could nudge the way they nudged the two guys from the gunmen who killed Malcolm X from the Nation of Islam. The FBI sat on those guys. They pressured those guys. They pushed those guys. They antagonized those guys until they killed Malcolm X. So while the FBI themselves didn't kill Malcolm X, they found a mark and they used it and they nudged them and they killed Malcolm X. So in truth, yes, the FBI killed Malcolm X. And by the way, then two poor bastards spent 2 decades over in prison when they didn't do it. They weren't the shotgun man. The shotgun man, who was also guilty of raping women in the past, got to sit and live a nice life in Newark, New Jersey until the date of his death, at which the lieutenant governor, the Democratic lieutenant governor of New Jersey, attended his effing funeral. The guy is in Cory Booker's campaign video from when Cory Booker was running. I mean, it's just unbelievable. This is what I see when I look at the Trump assassination attempt. There's no chance in hell for anyone who knows anything about how the Secret Service protects presidents. These guys weld manhole covers to the damn street when a president rolls up it. All right. They remove every ladder accessing high points. This is no chance. It's not just incompetence. Somebody was involved. This is a person of no renown. We're going to find out more and more stuff about this new guy. He, by the way, all over social media, touting Kamala Harris's talking points about Trump being a threat to democracy. Robert, they are trying to kill this man. There's no doubt about it. The state is trying to kill Donald Trump, and they are using losers, impressionable losers, marks, all right, assets to do it, because that's how it's done, folks. It's not done through some black op guy like I am for on the friggin' roof with a tattoo of a friggin' Q code on the back of his neck. That's for the movies and video games. In real life, they find impressionable people that they use, and then they push those impressionable people. They nudge them into doing this shit. The state is trying to kill Donald Trump. And by the way, if Harris was ahead by 5 points, they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, to the next super chat that asked about will it give Trump a bump? I think it just reinforces that Trump is perceived as a threat to the establishment and now an outsider, an underdog. Yep. In ways he's never really been perceived by large parts of the previously undecided voter group in the past. And my favorite meme on that is when they put, Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Poppy Bush, Joe Biden, and they say, and they have them in a photo together, and they're like 5 presidents, 10 wars, 0 indictments, 0 impeachments, 0 assassination attempts. Donald Trump, no new wars, 4 indictments, 2 impeachments, 2 assassination attempts. Yep. So it's just going to reinforce Trump's brand as an outsider to key voter groups that are already rallying to his cause.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do 100%. I think that there's just becoming this stigma now. And I don't even know if it's a stigma. It's just a branding. I mean, it's good old fashioned branding. It's reinforcing what people may have already thought or suspected, what's important to them. And it's like, why do they want to kill this guy so bad? It's very much feels like 2016 to me, Robert, where people who were not telling us they were going to vote for Trump, though, just kept in, the back of their head saying, why did they oppose this guy so fiercely? It must be because he really is a threat to them. He's going to really do these things. And at the end of the day, they went and pulled the lever for him because of it, or, the proverbial lever. Greg, welcome aboard. When was the last time a Republican got 20% or more of the black vote? What is the average black Republican vote over time? This is a good question. You want to take it, or I'll take it.
Sure. By some evidence, Nixon in 72.
Yeah.
The otherwise Nixon 1960.
Yeah.
For those that don't remember, just a brief crash course. Republican votes were heavily Republican due to the Civil War. From the time they could vote, 1868 until 1932. And even then, older black voters stayed Republican, often all the way through until 1964. It was the younger generation that was 3 generations removed from slaves that began to break Democratic in 1932. Black vote started becoming competitive in the urban North after multiple urban great migrations from the Deep South. And that's what made the black vote and civil rights a competitive election issue by the 1950s and 1960s. But what Richard and I have been talking about for years is watch for the younger black population, another generation, 3 generations removed from the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement earned the support of older black voters, and they will stick with them. But as that generation fades out and new generations replace them, these new generations don't share the same loyalty. They don't see the same benefit. Yeah. And so we said, watch, that's a vote Trump can reach. God bless Joel Pollak, but he's out there repeating of Breitbart, but he's out there repeating lines like Ann Coulter or something. The saying stuff like, ignore anybody who says Trump's doing better with minority voters. Joel, stick to covering Israel. You're lousy at covering polls.
It's not even disputed anymore. The only thing that's up for debate is how much better he's going to do. It's not disputed anymore about whether or not Donald Trump will do better with non-white voters. The question is debated how well, and will he, there to some degree, there's a debate over how much of the white vote would he lose? Is this going to cost him any of the white vote at all? I don't think it will at this point. I think you have whites trending who are educated anyway, overly educated. They're trending Democrat anyway. You have to make that up some way. For every 1 point of the white vote a Republican loses, if you are using 2020 as a guide here, they need to make it up by gaining 6 points with the black vote. That doesn't even account for what it does when you go from 35% of the Hispanic vote to 42, right? That doesn't even count that math because Hispanics are, of course, I think Hispanics may outvote black voters this year. I think that's possible, very possible. It was like not a one-off. I was kind of wondering whether or not a poll we did was a one-off months and months and months ago when Hispanics said they were more certain to vote. It's now routinely the case. We're seeing it sometimes closer, but it's routinely the case. And black voters, their population's just not gaining. So eventually Hispanics will be a bigger political force in the electorate. I mean, that's a inevitability. You think
I think my prediction for those that may not remember is Harris 76, Trump 21, basically a 55-point margin and 4% scattered across Cornell West and others.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I think at this point, what did they have him at the NAACP? 14%. I think that is at this point, that's like it's a safe bet, but it's a low bet. And I think that those undecided.
They have Harris only at 63, so.
I know. And usually, if you go back, folks, and look at the commission polls by the NAACP, they would have Trump in like low single digits. So they always understated Trump's black support. I think it was 4% last time. I think it was 4%. I could be wrong about that, but I think it was like 4, maybe 6. It was nothing, like he was going to get nothing. And I'm telling you, those black women have no reason to say they're undecided. They're not undecided. I mean, they're just not. Yeah, this is about the AB. You think Swift was paid for this endorsement? I
got a hush predicting this over a year ago over at vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Yeah, you can look up the Super Bowl hush about how they converted Taylor Swift to be an agent of the Democratic Party and the deep state apparatus. And it relates to who some of her royalties were sold to a couple of years ago.
Oh, you got to go check that out. I'm going to check it out. So you better go check it out. Look, it's not like they would cut her a check and say, here, thank you for the endorsement. But there is no doubt some financial benefit that she's going to get as a result of this endorsement. There's just no jobs in the future that she'll get, gigs that she would not have gotten otherwise, endorsement deals that she probably would not have gotten otherwise. And I don't mean political endorsements. I mean like products, stuff like that. She even has her own line of different things. I mean, they'll get relationships at different various stores and other stuff that she wasn't going to get because of it. It's not like they're going to cut a check and say, here's $1 million, as if that means that much to her. That's she's got a lot of money. So you need to do something else for somebody like Taylor Swift in the mold of what I'm saying. We talked about this already. It's the whistleblower. Let's see. They took another shot at Trump yesterday. I'm worried even if and when he wins, they're going to throw him in prison and use that to object to the certification. I think they'll probably try to do that as well. I think you see people like Jamie Raskin already kind of telegraphing what they're going to try to do. If they did, Robert and I talked about this, I think it was last episode. If they did, Robert, I mean, they would be risking the biggest political hypocrisy ever. So, I mean, but I put nothing past these people anymore. I mean, really, I just don't. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the political realities will preclude that from being effective. Plus, I think people should go back and look at what we've talked about before on the Senate polls.
Yeah.
The historic, go back and look. We have 2 presidential cycles you can look at in contested races and see how well the media did predicting what was going to happen in 2016 in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina.
Yeah.
Then go back and look in 2020 and what they predicted about what was going to happen in Michigan, Arizona, and North Carolina. And in all of those cases, they were saying that the Republican Senate candidate was going to underperform Trump by 5 to 7 points and had no chance. In every single one of those cases, the candidate ran very close to Trump. So if Trump does win these states by margin, like Arizona, like Nevada, like Michigan, like Wisconsin, like Pennsylvania, then expect, like he is going to for sure in Ohio, then expect Republican Senate candidates to similarly overperform.
Yeah, I think, I think that they are, there's Pennsylvania has tightened significantly, and I think they're doing a really good job.
There's a super chat in there about
asking about that. Yeah, so where is that? The Des Moines Register poll, we did answer that one already from Stargate. I mean, yeah, that's really unfortunate, and I really did not want it to be true. Here we go. I'm in Chester County, Pennsylvania. At this point, far more Trump signs or only GOP AG signs or McCormick signs. If Trump wins PA by 3 to 5, does that knock Casey off since your pre-chow ticket splitting doesn't exist? It hasn't. Yep. Susan Collins is the only example of a modern Senate race when the candidate for Senate, their party did not also win the presidential vote in that state. So we're looking at like some heavy ticket splitting if the polls are actually right. I'm just telling you, Pennsylvania has tightened considerably. Pat Toomey was thought to have been a stronger candidate in Pennsylvania than Trump. And in the end of the day, it was the Trump coalition that pushed Pat over. Pat was not going to win with the traditional Republican coalition alone. So it's actually deceptive because sometimes the Republican does run a little bit ahead of Trump because they're getting that like educated white vote. That's old school Republican. But they would not, and Trump isn't, but they would not get the working class coalition if Trump wasn't on the ballot, and they are. So it's like Rob Portman wins by this inflated margin because of that. Now, that being said, in 2016, they also showed that they were running stronger, and that didn't happen to some, like Kelly Ayotte, New Hampshire. Look, this race has tightened. The McCormick team has done a really good job so far anyway on the ground things. I just think his ass needs to get off the bench and go speak up for the Amos Millers of the world, despite all the threats from big, powerful people about what happens if you defend Amos Miller. I mean, that's got to stop. Dave, you have an image as a hedge fund guy, this absurdly rich hedge fund Wall Street dude. That shit ain't going to play, bro, in Erie or Northampton. So you need to get off your ass and go to Lancaster and other areas and defend the working man and woman against the tyranny of the state. And if you don't do it, then you're going to lose. It's that simple. And I think we will see some ticket splitting because it's a Casey. Now, the only good news, what we were just talking about with age, Robert, and fading memories, the Casey name is not what it once was. And, it is what it is. We'll see. However, I do think Lake is behind Trump considerably. I mean, I know people who are pulling the race. What do you think? Speaking of Pennsylvania specifically, I think it does absolutely help McCormick that Trump is ahead. I do.
Oh, no question. I think in all of these states, the key is what we've articulated, laid out the polling map for it in the 1776 Law Center polling data that Richard did, that showed there's amongst working class swing voters, these new minority millennial Zoomer working class voters we've been talking about throughout that are swinging so heavily towards Trump from the Democratic Party. That's the group that the Senate candidates and House candidates are underperforming with because they don't trust the generic Republican brand. Yeah. So
Yeah.
whether you're McCormick's got an easy one in Pennsylvania. Amos Miller's going to have a big court hearing. He's the Amish farmer they're trying to shut down, has a huge support base across the country, big within the Amish community that by itself in a close race can determine the outcome of the election in Pennsylvania. Between Amish community and people they employ and work with, you're talking about over 100,000 people that have a very unique specific interest. And the state of Pennsylvania is going to try to shut down Amos Miller. That hearing is going to be heard in Allegheny County Courthouse Tuesday, October 8th at 9:30 in the morning by the Commonwealth.
I would do a press conference for him. I would
Absolutely.
do it.
If it's smart Senate candidates, House candidates, people running for state office, the person running for Attorney General in Pennsylvania could use that as a perfect opportunity to do two things: align with the Amish, align with food freedom, align with a good cause. But secondly, show you're not a generic Republican. You're somebody who's going to stand up to big pharma, stand up to big food, stand up to big tech, stand up to big money, so that they can't caricature you as the hedge fund guy like they're doing to McCormick. Because somebody who's standing with the Amish, someone who's standing with a small Amish farmer against the state of Pennsylvania for your right to decide what food goes into your belly and to keep small farmers alive in this country, that's a Trumpian populist position that is the kind of issue that can distinguish you and help you win across the board. So if you're McCormick, there's an easy one with the Amos Miller case. I can tell you right now, Tucker Carlson's going to be in Philadelphia next week, and Alex Jones is going to be there. They're going to be talking about the Amos Miller case as part of the cases they're talking about. Tucker Carlson is doing a special documentary on his channel on the Amos Miller case. It's going to be one of the first documentaries he does. So this is what people realize. This is a great issue, great zeitgeist. It's one of many. But so for McCormick, real easy. For the Pennsylvania Attorney General candidate, real easy. Pennsylvania Attorney General candidate can say, hey, if I'm elected Attorney General, I will not be trying to put small farmers in this state out of business.
Right.
That's simple, unlike my opponent. And so that makes it easy. So they have an easy winner for everybody else. Kerry Lake in Pennsylvania, Sam Brown in Nevada, the people in Michigan, any of these states, Wisconsin. Use one of these issues like food freedom. It's an issue in Michigan. In Michigan, they're busy shutting down small farmers, destroying their food because they decided they don't want to allow it or permit it, even though it's perfectly healthy food that had no customer complaints. So that's a perfect issue in Michigan to run against CIA Slutkin, the Democratic candidate. So there's all these options that all they got to do is jump on them. If they do, then I think you will see a bunch of surprising Republican Senate wins on Election Day. But it's up to them.
Yeah, it's up. It really is. It comes down to them, Robert. We'll tell people where they can find. Just let me tell everybody, I'm going to be about an hour from now or so. I'll be on with Tony Perkins' show, the Family Research Council. We're going to talk about this very thing, about how Republicans are struggling behind Donald Trump. And this is not something that is inevitable. This does not need to be the case. But, they're not doing what Robert and I have repeatedly told them to do. And very few are taking it as serious as they should be. I think they think there's going to be some quick close here, Robert. And I think, leave it to them to make history in a bad way. So like when we say there's no ticket splitting, I would just caution people with that. Leave it to them to make history in a bad way because they are that bad, man. They just are. But so tune in to the Family Research.
But if you want honest polling data, remember to support the Public Polling Project.
Links in the description. BigDataPoll.com. The Rust Belt poll is being funded right now, folks. So go check it out. I'm also inside the numbers. I'll show the results. I'll probably put it up on locals even before that. But the results of the undecided voter, kind of like, I can't really call it a full poll. It's like more like a little focus group, like an online focus group, which was really cool. And then of course for all of Robert's sports picks, it's right there. But tell them what you got going on, Robert.
Yeah, I got political bet recommendations for Polymarket, Predicted, Bet Online, wherever you may be able to bet or get some money, because I think there's going to be very profitable opportunities this election, especially at sportspicks.locals.com.
Yeah, and that website. What was that website again? We put it up the other day. That one is my favorite.
BetOnline.ag. So BetOnline.ag, based out of Panama. You can get odds on almost every single state, the margin of victory. So we've got recommendations on over 100 different political betting options, what percentages we recommend for people. 2023 was a very profitable, 2024, both years were very profitable political betting years. So
was
for
21. So
Sorry.
was 21. You know, it
Oh,
was
yeah,
like
they
were
that's true, yeah.
stubborn.
Because
Stubborn about Virginia, stubborn
Yep.
about New Jersey. I mean, well, not everybody. You and I knew, though, because of insider polling, New Jersey was going to be close. Because it's going to be close. They could have pushed Jack over. They're such idiots, the RGA. They're such idiot imbeciles, stupid imbeciles. I mean, a guy's sitting there in his car going up and down Route 9, shaking hands. Like, that's how you win New Jersey. Like, what a moron the former head of the RGA is, Robert. I kid you not. But yeah, sportspicks.locals.com. Go check out all of Robert's bets, and post his recommendations. And it's that website, man. I've been all over it since the debate with what word is going to be said more times. Man, I got a kick out of it.
And my free pick for everybody out there is that it's still almost even money. Some case you can get it as an underdog. Marino, the Republican, to win the Senate seat in Ohio is my free pick for the show.
I think that's going to be some crazy polling errors there too, like Survey USA, or them too. But USA Today and Suffolk University, the Sherrod Browns plus 16 against what's his name, Renacci, Jim, right? And I mean that Jim just didn't have it, man. He didn't. All right, so he was going to lose, but it wasn't going to lose by 16. Baris, I think, had it 18. I mean, it's just insane numbers. And that, of course, did not happen. And with Trump on the ballot, I just don't know how Bernie loses. And Sherrod Brown put up his worst primary performance ever since being elected last few months, when they had their Senate primary. So, yeah, he was running uncontested, but guess what? He had been before, and he still did better than that. So that was a gross display of primary power. So I got to tell you, that just doesn't look good for him. It doesn't. I don't care what the polling says. It's Ohio. They don't know how to poll it. Go look it up. All right. All right. With that in mind, we'll see you guys next week. Right, Robert? See you next week.
Next week.
Unless there's court or something that comes up. All right, everybody. Go join Robert over on Locals at sportspicks.local.com. I'm going to be on Tony in a little bit here, and then Inside the Numbers on Wednesday. The link to the public polling project is in the description below. Do what you can. Share it far and wide. We'd love you for it. All right. With that, I'm out like trout on a fishing route before Laura has me by the you-know-what. All right. See you guys.